What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome into episode number 337 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned number 9 NCAA ranked, and of course viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast network. It's KB and Deej coming at you on a very special episode of the pod. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The surprise factor worked to a T. And Deej, I secured the white whale for the pod. And on this episode, we are joined by the one and only Philadelphia Waterdogs goalie, Matt DeLuca.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. I was angry for the longest that you wouldn't tell me. And then when I hopped on, that all went away. I didn't care. I did not care at all. I had literally the child's grin ear to ear on my face. Enjoyed the whole thing.
And I say this not to toot our own horns, because I genuinely do like to give ourselves credit from time to time. But I say this genuinely because I feel like it was, when we talked after Matt came on, genuinely an all-time guest appearance on this podcast. Hands
Absolutely.
down. The fact that Matt DeLuca gave us an hour plus of his time, and we spent a half hour after we finished recording still just chopping it up. Like, it was just like three friends sitting at a bar, chilling and conversing about just anything that popped up. It was genuinely one of my favorite guest appearances we have ever had on this show. It will not be the last time Matt DeLuca comes on this podcast or potentially our network as a whole. So shout out to Matt DeLuca. You'll hear that interview later on in the show, but we will be recapping everything that went down in Salt Lake City. We will sift through the end of year award nominees that have been announced. The finalists have been announced. We've got some unfortunate lacrosse world news that we have to dive into. And not only did Matt DeLuca come on the pod, but we are lining up to have one of our biggest guests ever in terms of just like pop culture and then some. We'll talk about that as well. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials across the board at OTB LaxPod. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow Chase at the PLL Pipeline. Follow Hoots at Hoots Sport Media. And you can follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the pod. Now I gotta have a word here, Deej. The people are subscribing, but you Spotify listeners, you're grinding my gears, and you're gonna be grinding Deej's gears and Chase's gears and Hoots' gears in a little bit too. Our Spotify rating number has gone down. We're now at a 4.4 out of 5 instead of a 4.6 out of 5. Now, we appreciate the ratings because it does get us into the algorithm, but we need OTB Nation to come through and click onto Spotify and do this on Apple Podcasts as well, because it's been a while since we've gotten a 5-star Apple Podcast review. I need you to click on the podcast app of choice, leave a 5-star review, a 5-star rating, because it helps this show. It helps us continue to grow, lets us do more dope stuff. It allows us to get guests like Matt DeLuca and the future guests that we're going to talk about later in the show. Leave a 5-star rating on the podcast feed on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe. And I can't emphasize this enough. Subscribe and leave a 5-star review.
If you don't like something, let us know.
Literally.
Let us know.
Our DMs are open.
And we'll adapt, because we do this for y'all. This is not for us. It's for y'all.
To a degree, it's for us because it allows us to
yes.
chop it up, but
yes,
y'all make the show go round.
Exactly. So if you don't like something, we will
We are open to constructive criticism.
We may not completely take it out, but we may
We will
change
listen.
it and tailor it to benefit both you and us.
Exactly. So
Also, so that we ain't got y'all dropping us in ratings.
yeah. So fix those ratings, leave the 5 stars, and just come with the criticism to us. You don't gotta leave it there. And Spotify's anonymous too. So that's what's the real grind my gears is there's no review system on Spotify. It's just ratings. Let us know. YouTube comment section, Apple Podcast reviews, Twitter DMs, Instagram DMs, whatever it may be.
Put it on the timeline. I don't even care.
I don't care. We will respond. Y'all know we keep it a hundo. But subscribe to the podcast feed. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia and Outside the Box podcast YouTube channels. It's youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia and @OTB LaxPod. We are at 827 subscribers. The goal is 900 before the PLL championship game. Let's get there. Let's make it happen. Smash the like button. Ring the bell icon. Leave a comment down below. Let us know your favorite part of the Matt DeLuca interview in the YouTube comment section. And of course, subscribe. And this show is presented by the ever amazing humans over at Shootout For Soldiers. Deej, have you seen their top donor giveaway raffle prize?
No.
I'm going to pull this up as I do part of the ad read here. But Shootout For Soldiers, their mission is to use lacrosse as a platform to support American veterans and foster community engagement. With over a decade of dedicated collaboration from local communities, lacrosse players, and the U.S. military, Shootout For Soldiers has emerged as a highly regarded industry partner, offering an unmissable and eagerly anticipated event. As I pull this up here, Deej, I think your jaw is going to drop like a cartoon when you see this. So this is the grand prize reveal. It's a one-of-a-kind for the Baltimore individual top fundraiser. And I'm going to pull it up here on screen so everyone on the YouTube can also see it. I saw this today and my jaw dropped. I was like, this is one of the coolest potential giveaways anybody could ever receive. Check it out on the Shootout For Soldiers Instagram as well. But Deej, look at this beauty. Look at that. A one-of-a-kind Screaming Eagle Bucky.
I'm about to check my credit score. I might take a loan out.
Look at this thing, bro. And look at the back.
I might take a loan out.
One-of-a-kind custom Screaming Eagle Chrome Cascade helmet goes to the 2024 Baltimore individual top fundraiser.
Give me one solid reason why I should not take out a couple $100,000 loan to win that helmet.
That thing is gorgeous. They also have prizes going to I believe the top male donator and the top female as well, which both of those will be custom Shootout For Soldiers themed sticks.
That's sick.
Awesome. Unbelievable. All of that is going down at USA Lacrosse headquarters September 6th and 7th. Link is in the description to still register, to donate, to get involved. And Shootout For Soldiers was established in 2012 as a high school project, and this event has experienced remarkable growth in both reach and impact, raising over $5 million to champion veteran service organizations with unwavering dedication to their mission. Along with that, over $5 million raised to date. They've had over 7,500 attendees and over 2,500 players. Register now. Click the link in the description. Get registered for Baltimore. September 6th and 7th at USA Lacrosse headquarters. It's a perfect lacrosse weekend. It's going to be September 6th and 7th. Shootout For Soldiers, September 7th. Head on back up to Long Island. Go take in the PLL semifinals, where the 29th annual Battle of the Badges is going down between the NYPD and FDNY, plus a newly announced concert going down, which we'll talk about later on as well. And of course, for the PLL quarterfinals, the newly minted and inaugural Stars and Stripes Classic between the Green Beret Foundation and the Navy SEALs Foundation, which has a loaded cast of coaches on the sidelines for each team. Deej, I don't know if you saw the announcement with who is coaching, but what a get for the Stars and Stripes Classic and having just an absolutely loaded coaching staff for each team.
What better way to do things than to go all out, right? Like, what's the point in doing something if you're not going to do it to the best? And lacrosse is a great example of that. I'm just really excited for this to become a continual thing and to see, the evolution of this coaching staff, because I would imagine they're going to continue to provide this opportunity for other people. So we're going to see other great coaches end up, in the same position. So I'm just really excited for Shootout for Soldiers, really getting tied in with the PLL.
And the coolest part, both the Stars and Stripes Classic and the Battle of the Badges will be streamed on ESPN Plus. So click the link in the description. Register for Shootout for Soldiers Baltimore at USA Lacrosse headquarters. Figure out how you can get involved, whether it's attending, donating, or anything in between, and check out everything Shootout for Soldiers has to offer. And Shootout for Soldiers is the proud presenting partner of the Outside the Box podcast. Deej, Salt Lake City is in the books. The regular season for the 2024 PLL schedule is in the books. Let's recap Salt Lake City. But before we do, I want to talk to you guys about our awesome merch partners at PHI Apparel Company, the best merch in the game. Gear up with official Outside the Box podcast merch for the PLL playoffs. Rep it at your favorite NLL team's arena. Get it for the college season, which is quickly approaching, even though it's hard to believe. September's right around the corner, which means February's right around the corner. Go to phiapparel.co. The link is in the description. Click that bad boy. Goes right directly to the shop. Shop everything they have to offer for Outside the Box, Underground Sports Philadelphia. And if you're a Philly sports fan, they've got the best Philly sports merch out there. And when you go to checkout, use code Underground for 10% off your order. That's code Underground for 10% off at phiapparel.co. Look your best. Stand out in the crowd with our friends at PHI Apparel Company. Salt Lake City in the books, Deej. It was quite the weekend to wrap up the regular season. A lot happened over the course of the weekend as well. We had just a perfect representation of the origin of PLL After Dark and having overtime games at the wee hours of the night, 1 a.m. press conferences on a Friday night. It was a nice little homage to the 2020 bubble and something that brought the lacrosse community together, which for most of the time feels like it's impossible to do. But they certainly did that with PLL After Dark. And it was the same case this past weekend in Salt Lake as playoff spots were clinched, championship series spots were clinched, and the first ever Eastern and Western Conference champions were crowned. And we had our first banner raising in PLL history. I genuinely, and I know you hate going to Utah, but I will say this about Utah lacrosse and the fans there. Job well done. Job well done. The amount of noise that was coming through my TV during the two Archers games, whenever something positive for the Archers happened, was impeccable. You could hear the Let's Go Archers chants. It was a spectacle in and of itself in the best possible way. And I think this is just the culmination of, from what we saw in Albany all the way through to the tail end of this regular season and now ending in Utah, just the buildup and the improvements week over week that our guy Danny Passavoy and everybody at the PLL on his team have made to make homecoming weekends, making each one better than the next. And it is a testament to their hard work and dedication to make each market feel like it was a home game. And genuinely, every single weekend, for the most part, felt like a home game for the teams that we were at. And I think that was one of the coolest aspects of this entire PLL season as a whole. and Utah put a perfect bow on top of it. They were spectacular in the stands.
Yeah, and I think another part of that was the supporter groups and the fans taking note of what other fans were doing while at their homecomings and either completely ripping off of that, which is totally fine, or
That's what we call a remix.
Or slightly changing it and adapting it to fit them and their style and their team. It just worked out great everywhere that we were at, and it worked out great, seeing it on TV. There were multiple times throughout the season where there were crowd pops, and you could hear them on TV, and you were like, wow. Like, sitting on your couch, you're like, wow, that is loud. And you could feel the energy through the TV, which you can get in other sports as well. And I think that was really important to the game. And then it's going to be really cool to just go back in the playoffs and kind of be back in that space where it's a mixed crowd and there isn't really heavy team affiliation. Like, there's going to be team affiliation everywhere.
Two teams do get the bonus of like a little bit of added to that because of where they'll be playing. It's not necessarily like their homecoming weekend, but they'll have an additional backing in the stands for them, which I think will also be very cool.
Absolutely. But then you're still going to have a handful of people that are just like, I'm over here and I'm an Atlas fan and I don't care. So like, I'm just really excited.
I think it'll more so be Boston that has that feel.
Yeah. I think if Philly was there, it would be interesting, but that's here nor there. But yeah, I'm really pleased with what we saw, both design wise and fan wise, from home markets this year.
The banner was sick. I hope that stays up at Zion's Bank. I would be stunned if it doesn't, just because of how entrenched the Utah Sports Commission is and how entrenched that stadium is with the PLL. That's a cool fixture to have at that stadium. Awesome banner, and I think that also just adds more just oomph to the rest of the league to be like, damn, like, we're getting banner raisings now. Like, I think it's just a cool little subtle detail that just makes the league elevate that much more, and it was really cool to see that get unveiled. The games went a little something like this. I mean, great game in terms of just action back and forth and keeping it competitive, but at the end of the day, it got done in overtime, and I will forever call him Jackie Overtime until he earned that. Jack Van Overbeek, Jackie Van Overtime, seals the deal for the Archers to win the West, punch their ticket to the postseason, punch their ticket to the semifinals. They continue to go on their streak of never missing the championship series as well. They beat the Redwoods 13-12 in a very controversial game that had a lot of people talking about the refs, a lot of people talking about, a lot of things. But I mean, a fascinating game, an even more interesting press conference session afterwards, and the Redwood season has come to a close.
Couldn't be happier. It was hard being a Redwoods fan this year and watching. Like, honestly, it was hard. What I do have to say is Charlie Bertrand's crazy.
Insane.
But there's no way you should miss 7 there. At least review it. Deciding not to review it is wild.
That's the wilder decision.
Wild.
It's like, you have the chance to do this. You're like, man, maybe I don't feel like it.
I can count. Like, I can just imagine.
Insane.
I can just imagine Palem's on the sideline. Like, we don't need to look at that. I can count. There's 6. Look at it. 6.
I'm not using thumbs.
It's just hilarious, like
his math counts, like how, like this, the wise asses in elementary school would be like, how many fingers am I holding up? Oh, you're holding up 8. No.
Yeah.
Thumbs don't count.
Yeah.
That's Matty Palin
stop
math.
It, bro.
Matty math.
That other than that, though, it was a very good game to watch. It was exciting, and Jackie overtime was exciting to see. Kind of him get his, first looks at PLL and make an immediate impact. That's the kind of stuff you're looking for out of rookies.
That was a hell of a performance. Number 1 on SportsCenter. Like, imagine being a rookie in any sport and you're waking up. This is your career debut. You're an undrafted rookie and you perform at a level to where you are the number 1 play on SportsCenter in the first ever home game, quote unquote, for your team. Like, that's just like cloud 99 shit.
That puts you in the Archers Hall of Fame type shit.
That's like you're going in the Ring of Honor for the Archers.
Like, you cannot be forgotten. That will go down in history for sure.
People will say, "Where were you when Jackie Overtime was born?"
They'll forget how many hours you worked.
Yo, facts. My boy was working overtime.
But they won't forget.
Man.
That's one of the greatest trends on Twitter right now.
That shit has me dying every time.
It's such a good trend.
Rob Pennell.
We should do that with DeLuca.
Oh, yeah. They won't remember the downloads. They won't remember the hours put in, but they will remember. Clip of Matt DeLuca.
Perfect.
Rob Pennell kind of left his future up in the air in the press conference. He said at this point in his career, he's playing to win championships or championship. You could kind of see the frustration of a just long season on his face. And that's kind of the first time that we've gotten like that inkling from Rob where it's like, hey, I don't know. He also mentioned like he and his fiance are getting married next summer. So that is going to, be an aspect where depending on when they are getting married, if it's the Redwoods or if it's another team, you're not going to have Rob the entire season. And I mean, at the end of the day, like RP3 is still a Hall of Fame player, hands down, first ballot, unanimous, and had some unbelievable moments this season too. But at the end of the day, for the Redwoods, like future of their team and just the betterment of their team, and I look back at what Staggs said at the end of the season last year, where there's going to be a lot of tough decisions. I feel like this Redwoods team has to kind of have that sit down and look in the mirror with themselves and have those tough decision talks to make this team better in the long run and in the just overall benefit of the franchise rather than just the now.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple tough decisions to make, possibly with the coaching staff, possibly with the players, but the only thing that truly has to change about this team is the way they play offense.
We talked about it.
Joe Keegan put it out. When it comes down to assisted shots, they shot 42%.
They can't play hero ball.
And I quote tweeted and I went, "Oh, the Redwoods were good when they moved the ball? Who would have thought?" That's it. If they can move the ball instead of trying to dodge and isolate so much, they would be just fine.
And we've had conversations like just between us with other people. Like it just feels like in a lot of aspects, whether it's player, coaching staff, whatever it may be, like they're just like so like stubborn. And like you kind of have to put that stubbornness aside in a lot of ways just for the betterment of your team and the ability for your team to perform. And like you look, and I know I keep going back to it, but it's a prime example. You look at Staggs, like for years, he kept his guys on his roster, had, that core group. And then last year, it comes to an end abruptly in their eyes. And it's like, hey, we have a lot of tough decisions to make sure that the Whip Snakes are a better team. And look at what happened. Earhart retires. And even when he retires, I'm pretty sure I'd say 80% of press conferences this year, Staggs brought up the name Michael Earhart, which I was like keeping track of that the whole year. But you look at just the way he was able to embrace bringing in rookies, allowing a lot of the pressure to just be taken off of his shoulders by bringing in somebody like a Drew Snyder to be on that coaching staff and take a lot of those day-to-day pressures and those week-to-week pressures off of him. they became a better team than they were last year because of it. They made changes, they recognized some of their deficiencies, and they improved from it. Was it perfect? No, but it's never going to be a perfect 180, flip of the script every year for a team that struggles one year and then improves the next. There's going to be phases of it, and the Whipsnakes are a prime example of going and improving upon fixing those issues that they had. We'll see how it builds year over year with the Atlas, because they, went from bottom tier of the league. They barely made the playoffs last year, and now they flip it and they're the top team in the league. We'll see if that sustainability is there, which I think we both agree with the talent they have, it will be there. It's one of those things that the Redwoods have just not been able to recognize, and they've put Band-Aids on a lot of spots on their roster, and in a lot of ways, just the way they play, and the Band-Aids have busted off, and it's more of a flesh wound than a scrape.
I wouldn't even say Band-Aids. Like, it's not, they're just completely ignoring it. Like one of those, it'll be like walk it, like they're literally like walk it off. This is not a walk it off scenario. Like, their offense is stuck in the MLO. They play MLO offense in the PLL and wonder why they're not successful. You're playing outdated offense. You have to adapt. And if adapting means letting go of Rob Pannell, you let go of Rob Pannell. If adapting means forcing him to move the ball faster, you make him move the ball faster. Like, whatever you have to do, you do it. It's like it's not really like a hard conversation to have. It's just one that they're choosing not to have. They're not going, oh, Rob Pannell is one-dimensional, so we're going to, run our offense through the midfield and only let Rob dodge when we reset. It's just Rob's one-dimensional, so let's get it to Rob and run through him. Huh? That makes 0 sense. They're not trying to do anything to, like, remedy their problems. They're just like, oh, it'll work itself out. Not how it works in the professional ranks.
Sometimes you got to take an aspirin to get rid of a headache. Can't just drink water all the time. Sometimes you need water and aspirin.
And a couple Be Cool patches.
No free ads.
0 free ads. But
unless they want to come through.
Would love it.
But yeah, I mean, this Redwoods team, I think more than any team in the league, has the most questions facing them this offseason. They have a lot of things to just either come to fruition on, or it's just going to continue to spiral, and we'll see how it all shakes out. They have the number 2 pick in the draft, and that's a valuable thing to have, obviously, to add to a team that certainly needs adding to at a younger clip. And we'll see who's back on this team. We'll see who departs. We'll see who retires and all that. And it's going to be an interesting offseason. I think they have a similar offseason vibe to what last year's Chrome team had, where there was a lot of questions that had to be answered. And for Pseudo's sake, he did a great job in the draft and was able to kind of, piece together an identity for their team to a degree. And it's still very young. It's still very moldable. So they're still figuring out a lot of things, but the pieces are there for that. And I think the Redwoods have that type of offseason ahead of them. The Archers, like we mentioned, they win the West, first ever Western Conference champions. Congrats to Coach Bates and company. They're going back to the championship series for a 3rd straight year, only team to have secured a spot in all 3 champ series. For me, that'd be kind of cool to see them win it this year if they're able to come out on top. They're the only team in the Western Conference in this year's championship series. All 3 other teams are from the East. So it'd be kind of cool to see them come out on top finally. 3rd time's a charm. Who knows? But the Archers secure that bye as well, and I think that's huge for them, especially with the injuries that they've been dealing with Matt Moore. Hopefully he gets healthy enough to where he'll be able to play on Long Island. Unfortunately, Captain America and the captain of the Archers, Tom Schreiber, is out for the season with a shoulder injury. Best of wishes and a speedy and healthy recovery to Tom Schreiber. The sport is better when Tom Schreiber's playing lacrosse, obviously. really cool moment before their second game where he, temporarily handed off the C to Ryan Ambler for the remainder of the season. I thought that was a really cool moment for both of them with how close they are. And Ryan Ambler has been just as much of a captain to this team as Tom Schreiber has been, just without the label per se. And I think, even with the injuries, this Archers team still has what it takes to go on a run. And I think what Coach Bates said in the press conference after, it's like, we punch our ticket to the semifinals. Like, we don't have to play in the equivalent to wild card weekend in the NFL. Like, we get to kind of rest up, get our ducks in a row, get some guys healthy, get some guys back. And now to get to the championship game, we have to win one game. And it's all about the next game. And I like that mentality from a coach and from a leader to kind of recognize like their next task at hand. And if there's any team that we've seen navigate the bye week before the semifinals, well, it's last year's Archers team. They had the same situation with having just the off time, and they were able to go and win the championship.
Yeah,
So,
but that semifinal game wasn't much.
still, just from the approach and the preparation. From their personal, like,
I understand that point, but they're preparing for a much different game this year.
For sure. I'm just saying from the personal preparation, like they know how to prep during a bye week for the playoffs where.
Yeah, but you also had Tom Schreiber then. It's different this time around. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying
it's not different.
Things are just very different this time around. It'll be very interesting to see how things shake out. Because their next matchup is tough for them regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to get a pissed off Chaos team because everybody's doubting them again, and you already got beef with them just naturally, or you're just going to get a Cannons team that's rolling. Tough.
No, they have the other side of the bracket.
Still
it's
don't matter.
Whips or Outlaws.
Once again, pretty much the same thing. Pretty much the same thing. You're going to get a rolling Whip Snakes team, or you're going to get a pissed off Denver team.
Could you imagine we get round 3 of Archers Outlaws in the playoffs? I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll talk about that next week, but
just saying,
the storyline, the scenes in these playoffs are.
It's going to be interesting.
Storybook. But yeah, congrats to the Archers. The Cannons squeak by the Chaos 11-10, secure that 2 seed in the East and the overall 3 seed. But guess what, guys? You get to see the Chaos again at Gillette Stadium. It's a rematch right away. This game could have been completely different. The Cannons, I believe, ended up hitting double-digit pipes. It was either 7 or 11, 10.
It may have been 11, but I'm pretty sure it was 10.
Yeah, it was something crazy. Ryan Drenner with the most heads-up play ever. Congrats to the boy, 150th point in this game as well. It was also wild that Drendog knew that goal he scored was his first shot of the game. Just a wild game back and forth, and it's what makes me nervous for the Chaos in this rematch. And I think it's also something that helps them is that they can learn from it right away because they're playing the same defense and everything. But man, this year their offense has just been like, at times it's just gotten stuck in neutral. It's not even stuck in the mud. Like they just kind of like don't go forward. And the point production just hasn't been there. And like, obviously it's new guys on the offense and everything, but in my opinion, that doesn't win in the playoffs.
You're asking a lot from an offense that is mostly initiated by rookies. That's my opinion on that. The fact that they've won this many games, in my opinion, is impressive. You don't really have anybody on the offensive end outside of KJ and Josh. I guess Jules, but they're not asking Jules to initiate, really. and they
Jules
haven't
was like,
really, but
he
they
was
hadn't
fine.
yeah, but they weren't asking him to initiate, so he kind of was just filling in where need be. So really, you're asking a bunch of rookies to go in and dodge and create. It's going to take them time to adjust to the speed of the next level and how the game is played and the field dimensions, and everything is slightly different than what they saw in college. So I'm not surprised to see the low scores on both sides when teams play them, because you also are going against one of the best defenses in the league with the best goalie. It's going
Isn't
to be
it
tough
weird
to score.
how isn't it weird how this offense just craved Sergio Berkovic this year
No,
after last year where he didn't score a single point, and now this year it's like, in my opinion, if I'm Andy Towers in free agency and you have to ask me, because they both signed 1-year deals, I'm pretty sure, who you'd rather re-sign, I'd rather re-sign Perk for the way that this offense is going over Jules.
no, you got to have them both.
I'm saying if
They
you had to pick one or the other.
They're Jules.
I don't know.
Perk's very one dimensional. Perk's very one dimensional. He had what, 5 goals this year?
I'll
Like,
pull it.
granted, he was hurt and spent some time out, but he's just a step down shooter. And you have Eric Dobson. Like, there's no dire need to have both Eric Dobson and Perk. But you don't have another Jules on your team.
And I just think this offense too played way better when Ty Kurtz was available.
Yes.
He needs to be a priority depending on what his contract is. Oh, he signed through 2025, so that's a benefit for them. I asked Towers about that in the press conference. Like, he is so pivotal to
But
that
I think
offense.
I think the thing with Ty Kurtz was just they wanted to get looks at other guys. They knew what Ty could do for them. They had already seen him play the year before, and they know exactly what, he brings to the offense. So get a look at some other guys and then slide Ty in when you're ready and keep him there. And that's kind of what it's been. So I wouldn't be, I would be more surprised to not see Ty in the lineup for the playoffs than to see him there.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting in that rematch between them. I mean, the Cannons are just lethal, and when you can walk away from a game hitting double-digit pipes and still win, good on you. Good on you, especially in the way that they won.
I would say it's better. It's more so good on Carolina.
Oh yeah,
To
I thought they played extremely well, like on
keep
the
it
back
close.
end. Yeah,
Because realistically, if you're hitting 10 pipes, you're also hitting a lot of goals. Like this game, first off, this game easily could have been 20 some to like 5. That's just from hitting the 10 pipes. And then you add a couple that they missed just on the outside of the pipe and stuff like that. Like this really could have got out of hand quick. And that can get to you when a team is getting good shots and hitting pipes. It can get.
plus you had Austin Kaut come in, and not saying that Kaut's bad, but like you had a goalie change as well, where like that can go one of two ways.
Yep. They played very well.
The Waterdogs pull the upset. They don't finish tied for the worst record in a PLL season. They go 2-8 on the year. They pull the upset on the New York Atlas, 13-12. Matt DeLuca was sensational in this game. Kieran McCardle, 300 goals, new single season record for goals in a season by a Philadelphia Waterdog. Just a full total team effort. Jake Carraway was sensational in this game as well, tied with Kieran for points. Jack Hanna looked great, shot 50%, had a hat trick in this game. And this to me was like, and I mean, come on, Ben Randall scored. What a fucking demoralizing goal that was. That was a thing of beauty, baby. It was a total team win, and it was like they fully played as a team the entire game. It was a really enjoyable like game to watch from them. The only quarter the Waterdogs lost, in my book, like the second quarter was so back and forth, and it just evened things out. It was 5-5 at halftime, and then they lost the last quarter 4-3. But one thing I take away from this Waterdog season is like mid-season, and sure, the wins didn't come. They, down the stretch, I think 3 out of the last 4 games they played, they won the third quarter. And that was like their Achilles heel coming out of halftime early in the season. It was like teams were jumping on them in the third quarter. And then they would just have to play comeback kids and try to scrape back into games. The adjustments they made there were huge, in my opinion, down the stretch and being able to adjust. And that's a good sign for next year. But I tweeted it. We talked about it with Matt DeLuca. If you're a Waterdogs fan, your number one thing you come away with is that photo of the team that was taken in the locker room. A 2-8 season. This team was, handed some of the worst luck you could be handed. 5 1-goal losses, 6 1-possession losses on the year. Could have been another one if Matt Cavanaugh doesn't score that empty netter in Boston. This team won't be together in this iteration of the Waterdogs ever again, and the Waterdogs won't be together until May for training camp. Yet every single person in that locker room was smiling. And I take away that exact sentiment from the end of the 2018-2019 Wings season when Kyle Matisse said in the end of year press conference after their final game, because the giveaway at that game was a team photo. And he said the same exact thing. He said, you look at everyone in this locker room, even with the season we had, the ups and downs, wasn't the way we wanted to go. You look at everybody in that team photo, everyone is smiling. And I think that's such a huge thing to just understand that at the end of the day, this Waterdogs team, they obviously, and if you know them, that they care about one another more than anything. And number 2, they know that this team has the talent in place. They have the pieces in place, and they are going to be adding the number 1 pick in the draft to come together and flip the script on this thing. And that this year was kind of just a blip on the radar in terms of the expectation they have for this organization and just kind of the way the ball bounced for them this year. At the end of the day, was it a fun season? No. Is it a great sign to end on a win and to kind of just see the overall team vibe at the end of the year? Yes. And I'm happy that these guys got the win. I'm happy that they came together, grinded for 48 minutes, upset the top team in the league in the final game. And I think it's also telling that like Coach Tierney in the locker room video before the game was like, those guys are coming in here thinking like they can just run all over you. They know that you're not playing for anything. Let's make them not think that way. And then in the press conference after, Mike Pressler says like those guys, their season was effectively over and they didn't have anything to play for. And I was like, well, damn, bada bing, bada boom. We talk about a bit more with Matt DeLuca as well, just the overall vibe of the season and what's to come with the Waterdogs. But impressive win overall for the Philadelphia Waterdogs to finally put a bow on this odd season.
Congratulations on the win. I'm not going to damper the mood. So I'll leave it there. Great job, Matt. Very proud of you.
This guy.
You did an awesome job in that. But yeah, that's you know how I feel about certain situations. So I do not want to damper the mood. I feel like congratulating them on the win and going out on the win is an awesome way to end any season. You don't normally get that opportunity unless you're the champion. So I think that was cool for them to be able to say, like their last game of the season was in fact a win.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like the Atlas played poorly, and Matt kind of talked about it too. I think on pod, or it might have been after we finished recording, but like you look at some of the passes that the Atlas made, they just didn't catch passes and they could have run up to score a bunch. And it just wasn't their day. But I mean, what a performance from Peyton Cormier. Player of the week right off the rip. What a scary cheat code to unlock as you get set for the playoffs.
I mean, but if people go back and listen to, the draft stream or
Deej, why wasn't he drafted?
or a couple episodes after our draft stream, I vaguely remember saying multiple times, not even vaguely, I vividly remember saying multiple times that the Atlas should start Cormier, Teat, and Law. Granted, Law has moved on to Denver in the trade and everything, but I still stand by that today. Having a shooter like that across from Jeff Teat and then still being able to have a third attackman there, insane. So I'm going to answer this question for everybody out there. Schellenberger healthy. Your attack line is Cormier, Teat, and Dixon. You run Shelley out of the box. That's my opinion on that. And if you want to just take Shelley and put him at X, fine. He can come right out of the box and go to X. That's fine. But I think you need to have your best goal scorers on the field. And last time I checked, when you look at the NCAA record books, there are two names that are right next to each other. Peyton Cormier at the very top, and right below him is Xander Dixon, both with the UVA right next to it with a large amount of goals. Why wouldn't you put them on the field with arguably the best passer in the world at all times? And then bring another really good passer off the bench. With, I don't know, Dox Aiken and Miles Jones? Oh my God. You have two really good passers and four other people who can really score the ball on the field together. Three. And if you really want to go there, Miles Jones is also a really great passer.
And I'll say that's one thing that the Waterdogs defense did really well in this game was they were able to kind of like neutralize Miles Jones and Dox, where like they weren't fixtures and a force to really like overtake the game. Miles had one goal, I think, or 1 point. I don't know if Dox scored. I'll have to check that, but overall, great game from the Waterdogs.
I think Dox had one.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
I have it up.
Yeah, Dox had one.
Yep, he did.
And Miles had an assist.
Yep.
So you held their big dog midfielders to 2 total points. Like that's a huge win for the Waterdogs there to kind of take a piece of something that has worked so well for the Atlas this year, effectively out of the game for the most part.
But I mean, 15 points from the attack is insane.
It's crazy.
Insane.
Unfortunately for Jake Stevens, his goal streak came to an end.
That's okay.
And I think it's because I played him in fantasy.
Probably.
I'm 90% sure I'm just a fantasy jinx. Final game before we get to our Matt DeLuca interview. The Archers, resilient comeback and take down the Outlaws 13-9. One of the most entertaining games of the season. They put the nitrous on late in the game, and it was a beautiful game from Grant Ament to kind of put the team on his back and really push them to victory, because this game was for all the marbles. This was for the Western Conference. This was for a bye week in the playoffs. This was for a championship series spot. And the Archers come through fourth quarter, or second half, I should say, held the Outlaws to 3 points. One of them was a 2-pointer. And they did a damn good job across the board to kind of just like empty the tank, put things in perspective, and say, hey, let's go win this ball game. Connor Fields, Trey Leclerc, both with 5 points. Jackie Overtime with another 3-point performance. Grant with 2 points. The most electric Bo Pedersen goal of all time. That was insane.
Big Mish man. But no, it was awesome to see him, back at home. Make that play, the crowd pop afterward. That was one of those juice plays. And this goes back to like a conversation I had with someone on Twitter, and they were like, oh, would love to have, they were talking about like Ryan Con. No, it was a D mid, maybe Tarafanko. They were saying they would rather have him instead of Bo. And I'm like, dude, don't sleep on Bo, man. Like, Bo played 4 years of O-mid at Princeton before going and playing a year of D-mid at Michigan. Like, he has that aspect of being able to be a guy who can stay on and play O-mid or push transition. He has that aspect. And then it kind of finally sprouted with that goal that no one had like really seen it at the pro level from him yet. Michigan fans and people who watch Big Ten lacrosse have seen him do it to opponents all year last year. But to see it at the pro level, it kind of gave that spotlight to people like, oh, he does have that aspect.
And you're also talking about like a guy who was perennially nominated for short stick D-Midi of the year in Ryan Terefenko, who is just like at the peak of the position. Like, no shit, you'd rather have Ryan Terefenko on your team. Like, if anybody had that opportunity, they're going to have Ryan Terefenko on their team. But when you can get somebody who has similar traits and is, building his career, Bo is going to be great in this league. And I think he's in a perfect situation with the Archers and can learn from young guys like Connor Marr, Piper Bond. We'll see when Treasy comes back and everything, what the situation is. But like, to be in a short stick D-Midi room that has had success, and even going back with Mark McNeil and Dominique Alexander, like, that is a franchise that is entrenched with, obviously starting with cornerstone short stick D-Midis, and now they have developed and built upon that, and they are like a short stick D-Midi factory almost. Obviously, it's still early on in the process of the PLL as a whole, but that's a team that anytime they're suiting up, they've got elite short sticks out there, and that's a huge reason why the Archers are successful.
Very big reason. I mean, the whole point of offense is to attack the D-mids, and if you got good D-mids, then it makes it very hard to score on you. And then you add a great goalie onto that, and you see why the Archers have been successful the last couple of years.
And also in this game, Dauber was 69.2% save percentage. Nice. That's insane.
Yeah.
Great game from Dauber. Great weekend from the Archers. They're one of 3 teams that sweep their homecoming weekend. They joined the Atlas and the Whip Snakes in that category. And the regular season comes to a close. The playoffs are set. We will give you the playoff bracket before we kick to our interview with Matt DeLuca. But quarterfinals weekend, the first game on ESPN2, 4 p.m. Eastern time, opening faceoff will be the 3-seed Cannons against the 6-seed Chaos. And then at 6:30 p.m., it will be the 4-seed Whip Snakes against the 5-seed Outlaws. Winner of Cannons Chaos takes on the New York Atlas at 5 p.m. on ESPN Plus on Long Island on Saturday, September 7th. And the winner of Whip Snakes Outlaws takes on the Utah Archers, the defending champions, at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus on Long Island. And then the Cash App Championship, no free ads, but shout out, Sunday, September 15th at 3 p.m. Eastern time in Philadelphia at Subaru Park on ABC. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to kick it to our interview with the one and only Matt DeLuca. It is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Shootout For Soldiers, the best in the game. Register for their Baltimore weekend. It is quickly approaching, September 6th and 7th. USA Lacrosse headquarters. What a perfect place to put a bow on their premier event season than at USA Lacrosse headquarters in Baltimore. We showed you guys earlier in the show that beautiful top donor helmet. Top female and male donors will also get custom Shootout For Soldiers sticks. Baltimore is one of my favorite cities in the United States to go to and just visit. So it's a place that Shootout For Soldiers is going to. It's the perfect way to kick off semifinal weekend as well for the PLL playoffs, to get Shootout For Soldiers there. Register your teams for Shootout For Soldiers Baltimore. Check out all the information is linked in the description of this podcast. It's in the link in our bio on social media. And I mean, what better way to just kick off your fall pretty much than to go to Shootout For Soldiers Baltimore, go to the PLL semifinals, and then gear up for the championship game the following weekend. It's a beautiful flow of lacrosse that we have coming up. Shootout For Soldiers Baltimore, Friday, September 6th into Saturday, September 7th. You will not want to miss it. It is the final premiere event of the 2024 slate for Shootout for Soldiers. So click the link in the description, register your team, find out how you can volunteer, how to get involved, how you can donate. And if you're the top donor, you get that badass Screaming Eagle custom helmet that will look good anywhere. Check it out. Link is in the description, and shout out to Shootout for Soldiers for being our presenting sponsor. And without any further ado, let's kick it to our guy, the white whale himself of the Outside the Box podcast, Waterdogs goalie. All right, ladies and gentlemen, right now we have a very, very, very special guest that DJ finally knows who it is. His reaction was priceless, and that's what I was going for. And we are joined by Waterdogs goalie, Philadelphia Waterdogs goalie, Matt DeLuca. A long time coming. We are stoked to have you on the show, bro.
Super excited to be here. I think DJ's reaction definitely set the tone for this interview, so I'm excited for what's in front of us.
You were in the press conference this past week, final week of the regular season for the Dogs, and it was genuinely one of the best press conferences I think I've been a part of, just involving the Waterdogs and just showcasing the locker room chemistry you guys have. And then that photo comes out on social of you guys in the locker room all together. And I tweeted, I said, Waterdogs fans should be over the moon excited about the way that this team is going to be next year, because if you look at this picture, even after a 2-8 season, this team's not going to be back together in this capacity until May in training camp, but everyone's smiling. I think that speaks volumes about just like the closeness of your guys' locker room. Just take us through like what that moment is after you guys upset the Atlas in that final game, and just knowing that like even in a game like that where the emotions are high flowing, but in a season like this where it was, up and down, it wasn't the way you guys expected. What was that locker room like this year?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the press conference. I mean, I got lucky enough to sit next to Jake, and that's someone who's only been a part of our locker room for 1 year and just, I mean, fit right in. It couldn't be more perfect. To have a guy like that come into our locker room, I mean, a new face in our locker room is definitely different than usual. We've had pretty much the same team for the last couple of years. So just having him come in and just fit in right away, and then just be the leader he is. I mean, that's it's a Division I head coach who steps into your locker room and offers this light, sensible, funny personality. But at the same time, when something needs to be said, and and Kieran's talking, Bernsey or Dylan's talking, and then Jake steps in, it's like, yeah, that's another person we listen to as well. And it's just so cool to I don't have any kids, to hear his family side of the story and talk about what he goes through. Like I said in the presser, it makes you work harder. And then ultimately going into that locker room after that win, it's tough. You're in a mix of emotions. Obviously, you didn't have a good year, a year that was far below our standard of what we expect to do every year. But then you end up beating one of the best teams in the league in something that was a 19-man effort. There was not a guy that was on that sideline on the field that didn't have an impact. So you kind of smile through the pain, I guess, laugh it away, and I think that's a majority of our season. Some of the bad breaks, the bad bounces we got were almost laughable, but at the end of the day, it's accountability for us to play better. We didn't do our part. There were second quarters, third quarters, fourth quarters where we just weren't playing well, and you have to live with that. We were the ones making the plays. I think at the end of the day, you could, oh, coach, you got a new coach. I mean, Coach T's the best. There's nothing. It's us not making plays on the field is what it came down to. Whether it's hitting pipes, missing nets, not making saves, whatever it was, it comes down to us. And I think we are all comfortable enough to look each other in the eyes and be like, we just didn't play well enough. And then that kind of lightens it up. There's no finger pointing. There's nothing of that. It's the 19 of us, 25 of us didn't get it done this week. How do we get better? How do we improve? And then at the end of the day, you got to brush it off and move on to the next week. And I think those are the smiles you saw, where we were happy how we ended. Obviously, going into the offseason with a win is a lot better than a loss. But at the end of the day, the frustration kind of settles down, and then you just start chatting it up in the locker room, having a good time, and thinking about what's next and how we can grow. And I think the smiles you saw were us being genuinely excited for Kieran to hit 300 goals. That's just an unbelievable accomplishment for him. And so Coach T just gave a speech about that. So we were excited about that. And then Coach T kind of ended it with, let's all get a photo. You know, he wanted to do it. He wanted to grab it. And I think just bringing us all together one last time this year was, that's the smiles you kind of saw.
Is Coach T somebody who is gonna sling it in the locker room like that video that came out on social before the game, you know, dropping F-bombs and everything? Is that an every week kind of energy that he brings? Or do you feel like that was like, hey, let's like leave it all out on the table and like this is the last time that we're gonna be together, so let's go and prove that like, hey, we can win?
Hello?
Gotcha.
I'm so sorry. I
No
don't know what
worries.
just happened.
It's normal. That's
So-
normal on the OTB.
Yeah, honestly, my screen, your voice stopped working, and then my screen went black, and then all of a sudden you just popped back up. I was kind of
Yep.
confused. I saw your
That's
mouth
on-
still moving,
on
but I was
brand.
like, I don't think I'm hearing anything.
So on brand.
Sorry. So Coach T slinging it in the locker room.
Yeah, you know, the video comes out, he's like, you know, let's go out there and show that, you know, like we give a fuck. And is that like an every week type of speech from Coach T? Is he always kind of just like laying it out there like it is? Or do you feel like that was kind of like, hey, this is the regular season finale, this is our season finale, and he's gonna, you know, give his all in this locker room to get us going and go out there to motivate us to a win right before the game?
No, I mean, I think that's how he is every week. I think he definitely was adapting to coaching professionals versus college kids, which I mean it's hard for us to adapt to him. It's hard for him to adapt to us, but it's something we got better at throughout the year. And no, what you saw was 100% Coach T. That he is honestly the most competitive person I've ever met, and that is, you know, playing around some of the greats of this sport. He is more competitive than anybody I've ever met. And it's something you have to respect. Whether he gets in your ear about something, you know, screaming, yelling, whatever he's doing, it comes from the right place. The man just wants to win. And it's pretty easy to buy into somebody that's that competitive because you know he's going to do whatever it takes. So if you're doing that as well and then the team buys in, you know, we're gonna be doing some special things.
I'll peel the Band-Aid off here. What's some differences between Coach T and Andy Copeland that, you know, we wouldn't necessarily get a look into, whether it's coaching style, just approach to preparation, and obviously knowing that this was Coach T's first year coaching in the pros? And what are some things that you guys as a locker room, like you said, you've been together the past couple of years, it's been pretty much the same locker room. What are some things that you guys kind of picked up on that were similar to what Cope was doing that Coach T does?
I think similar. It was always about the locker room itself. I mean, Coach Cope did an unbelievable job about making it about everybody else. It was never about, you know, when we lost games, it was about him. When we won games, it was all of us. And Coach T does that as well. I mean, they're they're so unselfish that it's just like when things go right, it's all about the team. When things go wrong, it's all about them. And it's such an easy leader or type of leader to get behind when you have someone at the top, you know, doing the press conference, doing the sideline interviews. And when things are going right, it's the team's credit. When things are going wrong, it's on them. And I think that's a good similarity. A difference is for sure, I think, just style and tone. I think with Coach T, which is something we needed to be more organized. I think at times we played a lot of free lacrosse and a lot of just let's go make plays. And at times even last year, it hurt us. We needed a little bit more organization. We needed a little bit more discipline. And that's something we got this year. I think with Coach Lou on the defense and in the box, Coach Sherry with the offense, I think we just got a little bit more of organization. And you know, like the year we won it, we had 5 1-goal wins. This year we lose a bunch of 1-goal games, and you know, you could blame pipes, blame this, blame that, but ultimately they're not too far off. Both very locker room oriented coaches, which is something, you know, I love, our team loves, is how do we just get the best out of the guys that we have and not really start pointing fingers.
Well, I'll ask more about you. You know, when you look at the PLL, you have like Cotter and Entman did a great job of it. So does Tim Troutner and Brendan Krebs, along with yourself. Kind of talk about that role of being a backup goalie and how important that role is to PLL teams and how you're sort of like the second or third most important person on the sideline behind your coaches.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you try not to think of it week to week. I think that's how you get a little bit stressful with it. If you're just sitting there on the edge of your feet, like, oh, is it? I think that's how you end up getting in there and maybe being a little too antsy or too ahead of yourself. Yeah, it's a super important role. I think of it more uh, as an important role for the locker room. I don't think you guys see a lot, or the public sees a lot what we do. Obviously, we don't play in the game, so you don't see us on TV. But seeing shots after practice, just being the ultimate locker room guy. Honestly, whatever our team needs, I try to fill that role so these guys that are getting minutes on the field don't have to do it or think about it the day of the game or the day before. Um, and yeah, it is an important role. I think it's a hard role to be in sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's such a finite amount of players in this league. You just have to be grateful for the opportunity to dress every week. I mean, there's so much talent, as you guys know, in the player pool, but not even in the player pool, on the reserve roster for that week. You just got to be grateful that you're putting on that jersey and getting to travel to all these cool spots, be in the atmosphere of the game, be in front of the fans, and then ultimately, when your number's called and you got to step up, you have to be ready mentally to step into the game, whatever the situation is. And that's something I have 100% got better at. I think in college, if you would have tried to just throw me in ice cold and all this stuff, I probably wouldn't have done so well. I think learning from Dylan, especially just how to be calm, cool, and collected throughout it all. I mean, you guys watch him play. He's never flustered. He never gets, one or two goals go in. There's nothing wrong there. It's calm, cool. We're in control at all times. That's something I learned from him is, even whatever happens, you can only control what you can control. So attacking the mental battle with stepping in a game, in the third quarter, fourth quarter, whatever it is a tough one, but you learn from the greats that are in front of you. And that's ultimately the goal of, I think, why you kind of have these young guys as backups, is learn from the guys in front of you, take it away. I mean, you see what Krebs is doing. He's in an incredible position. Kyle Bernlohr is one of the best goalies of all time. If you approach it with the right mindset and you learn, you're only going to continue to get better.
So what are some of your favorite things you've learned from Dill? And then I'm sure there's maybe a thing or two that you look at and you're like, I'm never doing that.
Yeah, I mean, when he runs out outside the crease, you can never replicate that. I don't think anybody will be able to. Honestly, his ability to just win is something. I think that's like, if you were to ask me 1-1, like what I'm taking, I've learned from him is to figure out how to win, and that's something he's done his entire career. PLL, NLL, World Games, like you name it, he's won it. And that's something that it's an extremely hard skill to have. And I think it's just his ability to, like I said, if we're down, like we've been down 9 goals. I think in the Archers game, we were down 9 goals or 7 goals in the championship game, and we crawled our way back. His natural ability to never get too far behind or too far ahead and just focus on winning is something I took away early on. And it's something, man, I wasn't a winner in college. I wasn't a winner in high school. I grew up playing Class A Long Island lacrosse. Lost to Mac O'Keefe from Syosset, lost to Tierney at Massapequa. I never won in high school, never won in Delaware. Get here and we win. And learning how to win is a very hard skill. And that's something he's done an unbelievable job showing us with his play, but also teaching behind the scenes a little bit. And then obviously his style, there's times I bait a little bit more now or stand up a little bit more straight around the pipes. I mean, we can get into the goalie technicalities of it, but I take something away every time I watch him play. You'll watch him do something new or something just insane where he's standing on his head, and you're always learning if you're watching it and you have your eyes on the right stuff. You'll always be learning from a guy like that.
Have you felt like a hero yet? Getting a call overturned after pointing something out on the iPad?
It is a good feeling, I will say. I didn't have too many this year. We didn't have as many close calls. Usually with Sowers diving in the crease, you're really on all those. But yeah, I mean, that honestly, I think Quint or Clark said it in the championship game last year when I got thrown into the fourth. It is a really good way to stay involved in the game. I'm watching the game through the iPad and through my eyes, and you're in there for the entire game trying to pull stuff out and help our team out, especially this year with having a faceoff guy in Stath. I mean, Stath was coming over to me after every faceoff, and we're reviewing what our wings are doing, what they're doing, and that just keeps your mind right for the game. So getting thrown in, it kind of feels like you're a part of it already. But yeah, having control of that iPad is a fun power to have. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
I brought this up to you in the press conference as well, and it is one of the most fascinating draft stats I think in the PLL so far, is that you, Grant Ament, and Brian Costabile are the only guys left on active rosters from the 2020 college draft, and you're the only second-round pick. What does that say just about, like, it was a weird year, obviously, but just your personal approach to just, like DJ said, being ready and always learning and taking, one thing at a time, and also getting thrusted in your rookie year into a bubble on an expansion team that had never played together. What was that like?
We'll start with that. I mean, getting drafted was incredible. When Coach Cope gave me a call, it was awesome, and to have some familiarity with him, being in the CAA, playing against him at Fairfield, it definitely made me feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, I'm not going into a completely new environment where my new head coach is, never been on a sideline where I've been on the field. That was a really big comfortability part where I took it as like, okay, at least he knows me, he knows what I could do, he's seen what I could do in person, and that helps. Going into the bubble, I'll say it. A lot of people, we were in a hotel for a month. It was a hard being away from your families and all that. For a rookie, it was probably the best case scenario. Usually in a summer, if you're a rookie, you see these guys twice a week, maybe. You'll see them Friday, Saturday, and then everybody flies out Sunday. So you only have 2 days a week to try and bond with your teammates, and this is during the year. I got to basically spend every living moment of my rookie season with the guys on my team. We spent every breakfast, every day. We were in the facilities practicing twice a day, playing games. So I kind of built this bond, built this relationship with the guys on our team in a couple days because I had the time to do it. Where our rookies now, or maybe you don't make the lineup every week, and now you're only seeing your team once a month. So you're trying to build relationships with guys that you're only seeing once a month, maybe. So I think I got very lucky with there, and the guys that are still a part of our team from that bubble season are some of the closest friends that I have, like Chris Sabia, Zach Currier, guys like that have been around since that bubble. It was a lot easier for me now. Guys that have been through the MLL, been through the PLL, they didn't love it being trapped in a hotel for a month and a half or whatever it was, but for me, I mean, it was easy locker room bonding time, and I think I actually took away a lot from that.
Do you think as an expansion team, like, obviously that season was so strange for an expansion team to begin with, and you guys got that one win in the bubble, but as a collective, like you mentioned, like the guys that are still on the team from the bubble, you guys are, close as ever, and you guys are super close friends. Like, do you think that helped kind of set the foundation for the culture that this Waterdogs team has?
I think it did for a part. I will say that that original season was definitely a little weird. Obviously, didn't go the way we wanted to, but how did we no one had any idea how we would play? I would say going into that next season, the roster that Coach Cope put together and that first training camp back really set the tone. We had a lot of scrappy players, a high competitive training camp, and it kind of fit the mold of this is who we're going to be. And then only to go out that first game and get punched in the mouth by the Cannons and lose by, I think we let up 18 goals or something like that, like crazy stuff. But just the ability to then regroup and become the 1 seed that year, and then the following year win the championship, following year make it back. There was a part, and I really do. I mean, it's something I have FOMO of sometime in our locker rooms, being part of these old Outlaws team that were, Eli, Zach, Mikey Schlosser, Charlie Hayes, Dylan, like they sound incredible. Like that kind of, you get a sense of what that locker room was like and why they had so much success, because they brought that energy, that leadership, that winning mentality to our locker room. And it was kind of like, oh, we're going to get really close as friends. We're going to build a good bond, a good culture. But at the end of the day, when we step on the field, like we're expecting to win. And that's all we kind of want to do is win. So I will say Coach Cope kind of bringing in some of those Outlaws guys, I think really helped. It kind of there was already a sense of chemistry that we had. And I think once we had that, we hit the ground running, fit the right pieces in. And now you see we're a really competitive team, game in and game out.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up winning the championship in 22, being the 1 seed in 21, going back to the championship in 2023. I mean, you played in some big consecutive games this past winter, as well as the starter in the Champ Series. Take us through that experience, because number one, I was there for every game, and just watching you stand on your head, I was like, Matt DeLuca is built to play in this format. I don't know what was in his Wheaties this morning, but you were just on fire the entire Champ Series. And it was so much fun to watch from the previous year, where goalies were, they were struggling to kind of find their footing, and then you're just on the big stage and out there making save after save, making it look easy. I'm sure it wasn't as easy as you were making it look, but what was that championship series experience like down in Virginia?
Oh, it was honestly awesome. I really didn't know what to expect going in. Watching the year prior, not being involved, again, didn't really give me any help. Like you said, it was kind of all over the place. Some games goalies played well, some games, they didn't, but it never really looked like their fault. So you didn't really know how to approach it. I think having a year of the championship series film to go back and watch really helped give our team success. Being able to have a defensive game plan, being able to think of like, oh, this is what worked, this is what didn't. I think that's why we were able to string together a bunch of wins and unfortunately couldn't pull it out. But I think having that last second film and then ultimately, I mean, if you watched me play and thought I played well, you also saw what our D mids were doing. We were forcing guys in the right direction. That's a style of play I think fits my game. I personally like when it's high volume, high reps. I'm not thinking. I'm kind of just out there, stopping the ball, and it's quick possessions. Kind of like I think playing the Atlas fits my game as well. I think when it's just like pass, shot, pass, shot, like that kind of high volume is what I like because it turns my brain off. It means I'm just using muscle memory. I'm tracking the ball. We're flying around and we're playing fast, and I think that's why I had some success in the championship series. Was I didn't have to use my brain at all. It was kind of just like do what you've done for the last 23 years. You played goalie and you'll be all right. And it ended up being really fun. Obviously, it didn't end the way you want it, but I'm upset we're not going back this year. It's something that I definitely would have loved to play it again.
Yeah,
So I would imagine that means you're trying out for Team USA.
I
would assume I'm
Yeah,
hoping the invite comes, but I know that's
if
kind
the
of depending.
Yeah, if the opportunity is there, I mean, that Olympic style of sixes is really fun to play. I would obviously love to. Who wouldn't? Whether it be honestly anything, just doing the champ series again. I think my style of play, my size, and how I play the game fits that fits that style of lacrosse really well. So yeah, obviously would love to do that. I mean, we got some years going. I think weirdly enough, I've only gotten better since college. I think mentally is where you see that stride really hit, and you'll see that from younger goalies coming up. When you hit year 3, 4, and you're still doing this thing, you're not seeing shots every day like you are in college. So now it's more the mental battle. How do I stay ready during the week? How do I get myself back to kind of that competitive edge once I step back on the scene? Once I'm back for a PLL weekend, how do I get myself kind of into that game ready mode? But it yeah, I mean, it's definitely a goal of mine. We'll see kind of how the cards are dealt as we move closer to it.
The champ series is so fascinating to me because I feel like it has only enhanced what the PLL has been able to do, and I think it creates so many opportunities for guys like we've seen over the past couple of years. This year Ronan Jacoby saw Romar Dennis like tear it up in year one, and just giving guys opportunities that necessarily wouldn't have the opportunity on a typical game day roster if it was just, no champ series existing. I mean, we saw Tommy Palasek, break through like he was Stone Cold Steve Austin, like coming through like the 11th hour to come play last year.
Mhm.
How much do you think the champ series has enhanced just the overall product and value of the PLL? And like in the locker room, are you guys, obviously you want to finish as best as you can, but is that something in the back of your mind saying like, hey, we have a chance to, get back together even sooner than you typically would for a PLL team that finishes outside of the top 4?
Yeah, I think for that point, it definitely cuts your off season and it makes it feel a lot shorter, which is super helpful. Yeah, I think also it's a great opportunity for even guys like myself. Like I don't play a ton during the year. I haven't in the last couple years to go out there and get like minutes every game and just play in consistent games. It's awesome. It's an unbelievable opportunity. I think it looks great on TV. I think if you're new to the sport or you really like hockey and you're watching lacrosse for the first time, you're going to turn it on and look at it and be like, this is literally the same thing. And it's something that I think just kind of shows our athletic ability to our D mids getting up and down. It shows the full picture of how skilled some of these guys are. Like, yeah, they only play D mid, but like that doesn't mean they can't score and go play offense. I mean, guys on our teams, Christian Scarpello, Matt Witcher, Charlie Hayes, Jake Higgins, and then Jake Richards. You watch all these guys take the ball up the field. You're like, oh, they're a D mid. They'll dump it and run. And it's like, yeah, that's what they'll do. But if they had to play offense, they easily could. And it really just shows how special some of these guys' skill sets are. But Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of fun. I'm glad they brought it. I'm glad it's a thing. It's unfortunate we can't play in it again this year, but it's definitely something in the back of your head where you're like, yeah, let's try to lock up one of those top 4 spots. Let's be back, and it gives a really good opportunity to the young guys. I mean, 8 teams, 19 guys every weekend is not a lot of people, and it gives other people an opportunity to showcase their skills outside of a training camp week that we're together. So the more opportunity we get to play lacrosse, the better, I think. So anything like that helps.
I'm gonna go to the rivalry side of things. Being a Philadelphia Waterdog, you have the natural born Boston Philly rivalry that's been going on. But one that touches a little close for me is I am a Redwoods fan. Um, and you don't, the Philadelphia Redwoods don't have the best results against the Redwoods during the regular season. What's it like playing in those two rivalries? And then also, what's it like playing against some of the other teams in the league?
Yeah, I think for starters, the Redwoods, I mean, that was 100% said, and that's something that we're definitely thinking about and taking personal now. It's not going to deter anything that we do. We're not going to, make a different game plan for it. But yeah, like we want to get those guys next year in the regular season. It's something that we definitely have marked as a team. We've been close a couple times, and it's been they've made some pretty ridiculous comebacks on us a couple times as well. So I think that's definitely one that is always fun. I mean, getting to go against 2 Delaware guys and their coaching staff, Coach Collins and obviously Coach John Grant Jr., just 2 of the best Delaware guys of all time. So it's always fun seeing them on the sideline, and then they have one of the best goalies in net. So you never know what you're gonna see. Jack Kelly, I think this year in Denver. I mean, what a ridiculous save diving across the goal. And it's like we lose in overtime, and you look back, you're like, yeah, he dove across the goal and made a save on us like that. Absolutely, it's insane what those guys can do. So they're always fun to battle against. Boston for sure. I just think the ultimate physical game that we play against them. Just thinking back to some of our other games and watching the film on them, we're physical for sure, but I think those games that physicality amples and increases more, and that's something where you kind of know strapping your helmet on that day that it's going to be a tougher game, and it's most likely going to be a 1 goal game or a couple goal games. I think that's something like just going off your point, playing every team, like you have to know it's going to be within a 1 or 2 goal spread. If it's not, it's sort of an anomaly. You watch some of these games, and yeah, there's blowouts here and there. There's some 5 goal differences, but man, at least 2 or 3 games a weekend, we're getting a 1 goal, just intense game, and that's because of how close the skill gap, like the skill differential, is between teams. It's any team can win on any given weekend, and it was kind of shown this year. I mean, look at our schedule flip, but then look at some other wins across the board. You watch some of these. I think it was when the Outlaws beat the Archers and Brennan O'Neill went off. I mean, nobody expected that. Nobody thought they were going to win. And then you watch that fourth quarter and you're like, literally, it proves that anything can happen. And it's always fun. It's always fun playing against a new team every weekend because you're playing against someone that most likely you watched growing up, you competed against, you want to beat, you idled growing up, like anything like that. There's someone on the other sideline that you've respected their game, watched their game, or battled against them in college that now you want to beat them in this situation. So I think that's what makes it fun. And then obviously I'm starting to get to know more guys around the league as I head into year 6. Guys on our team that have been around 8, 9, 10 years. They have some buddies on other teams that they played in college with or played on other teams with. So it is one of those things where there's always something you're fighting for. It's I want to beat this guy, I want to beat this team, and I think that's what makes all these games super competitive.
Speaking of college and teammates, you have a couple that are from the University of Michigan. As you know, the winged helmet rivalry is very real now. I don't know if you got a chance to play Michigan back then, but if you did, what was it like? And then, what's it like having those Michigan men in your locker room?
I'll start with the Michigan man. I mean, Schloss has got to be the nicest person this planet has ever seen. There is nobody. We're not even talking teammates at this point. We're talking individually as a human being. He's got to be the best. there's no one like him. And when we brought in Mikey Bain to our locker room, I mean, Schloss just right away brought him in, and that guy couldn't work harder either. He is. I mean, you saw what he did in the Redwoods game. I thought he was awesome. I thought like just the the ability to step in. I think I really took it away in practice. He stepped into our offense and was communicating like he's been around all year, and it's just like it was incredible to see, and I'm really excited for his future. I did get to play Michigan once. We flew out there my junior year. It was my first, not my first Big Ten game, but opposite, other than Hopkins, that was my first kind of Big Ten on the road experience flying all the way to Ann Arbor. We won that game, which was awesome. Their facilities are just, I mean, you go there and you look around, you're just like, yeah, this can be a powerhouse very easily. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, they're winning Big Ten championships. But Delaware's on the come up. We've been unbelievable lately. It's actually funny. Our athletic director, Chrissy Raywalk, was over at Michigan, helped them build that lacrosse facility, raise all the money. Comes to us, and then all of a sudden, look at what UD is doing now. We got an unbelievable locker room. I mean, shout out Joe Flacco, elite. Now we have the Joe Flacco locker room, athlete cafeteria. These guys are eating, chef meals a day, and it's you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's why we're winning CA championships now. That's why we're making tournament runs. It's because now we can compete with some of those big schools, and Coach DeLuca, Coach Rakowski, and those guys, they do an unbelievable job there. It's a really competitive atmosphere when you play for Delaware now, and it's something as an alumni I love to look back and watch. These guys are just always fighting till the last whistle, and it's something to be proud of for sure.
So, how would you feel about Michigan Delaware becoming a normal game on the schedule, and it being the Wing Helmet Bowl, to where the loser is not allowed to wear their wings when the team plays the next year?
That would be pretty fun. I mean, like when we got those winged helmets, I didn't have them my freshman year. We had solid blue, and then Coach Luca came in, and we went back to the wings, and it's pretty awesome to see. I mean, just having something like that, having something characteristic about your uniform, and having something that's kind of bigger than yourself. The football team obviously wears it, and granted, our football team's on the come up. Hopefully, we get there one day. I know we got some big plans and things like that. But yeah, I mean, if any rivalry game is always going to be a fun one, and I think something to play for makes it even better.
The speaking of competitive atmospheres and everything this year, first time that you guys had home city delegations and everything, and what was that like? Obviously, you not playing every week too, and just being on the sidelines in those cities, and then in the games you did play in, being in opposing cities that had opposing fans that were specifically rooting for one team in a PLL market for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was unfortunate we lost 2 overtime games in Philly. It's just incredibly bad luck and poor play on our part. But yeah, you definitely notice it. It's pretty odd. So even in Salt Lake City, Utah, I think it was going into the fourth quarter, one of the TV timeouts, the announcer came on at the stadium and said, who's rooting for the Waterdogs? You got a decent loud noise, decent clap. Who's rooting for the Atlas? Decent loud noise, clap kind of thing. Then he said the Archers. And I mean, the place just erupted. And it's like they were literally we were playing in a 1-goal game in the fourth quarter, and the team that's not even on the field was the loudest chant by far. So I think it is really special. I think you're going to just see it kind of grow more and more. And I credit to the other teams. I mean, I don't like giving them credit, but the guys that went 2-0 in their home cities, I mean, good for you. You made an impact on your fans. I mean, even when we were in Philly, the fans were unbelievable towards us, actually rooting us on, having some sort of passion for your city. And Philly's it's not a joke. We get thrown into a really serious sports market, and that's something we're going to learn and start to adapt to it and really take pride in. These guys, doesn't really matter the sports, but Philly loves whatever you're going to give them. They're going to support. And they did that for us when we were at Villanova. So it was awesome.
I also feel like it doesn't always happen, and it's weird that it's happening in both professional lacrosse leagues, that the team from Philadelphia has the #1 pick in their respective collegiate draft this year. What is it like for you, just as somebody who's going to be a new teammate to this future pick, knowing that this locker room is, loaded with talent, you guys have a championship pedigree, and now you get to just add the #1 overall pick in the 2025 draft to that culture, to that winning, pedigree and everything? How exciting is that?
It's unbelievable. I think just being able to build on what we have already and add a new piece is something that definitely makes you look forward and kind of want May to be here already, to get whoever we go with. And then ultimately looking at a guy inside the locker room looking out. I mean, just coming in and understanding your role and doing whatever coach asks you to do. And I mean, look at Marcus Hudgens, right? Stepped in for us. Burnsy kind of went down. He's injured now. We have a rookie starting on defense, and he played his game and he played his role so well. I mean, Hudgy was the man all year. Great locker room guy. You know, never really went outside of his role. Just every week came in and unbelievable cover guy. Like we could put him on anybody and feel confident enough. And he was humble about it, and then he bought into our locker room and he fit in right away. So I think just the ability to know your role. It's going to be a different role from college, regardless of what pick you were, right? Whether you're first, second, third round, whatever round you are, your role is most likely going to be different than it was in college. There's some part of our offense, some part of our defense that's going to be different than what you had. So being able to adapt to that role is a super tough skill to have. I mean, you look at Peyton Cormier, the leading NCAA goal scorer of all time, running through the midfield. Like that's different than what he's used to. So regardless of where you're coming from out of the draft, just being ready to adapt to that new role and take pride in it is huge. I mean, you watch TJ Malone just crush it this year and being that quarterback and relieving some of the stress off of Rambo and Zed. I mean, that's why they're playing some of the best lacrosse right now. So I think just accepting that role and understanding what it is you have to do to help the team is where they're going to find the most success.
Oddball question, one that I hope honestly doesn't really happen. But you guys already have great families in the Waterdogs. I mean, the Randalls a couple years ago last year in Columbus, absolutely giving it to Jack Kincannon behind the bench. You have the Sours with their partying. The Slossers are the Slossers. You guys are most likely going to be drafting CJ Curse, which means you get to bring in the awesome Curse family into their Waterdogs. What are your feelings on possibly having a Curse in the locker room and what their family is going to bring?
I'm excited, man. I think if that's the way Coach Tierney decides to go with this draft and we get him, I mean, you can't be mad about it. It's something that you watch his brothers compete and you see this is like we're gonna get one of those. Like we're gonna get someone who's just gonna put his nose to the ground and work as hard as he can to be the best he can. It's hard to complain about that. I think if that's the way Coach T goes, it's gonna be unreal to have him. I mean, the guy's a goal scorer. He's a creator. He can facilitate, do it all. And then you watch his passion for the game when he plays. He just is so excited when they're scoring and they're playing well. And that new energy always boosts the locker room. Like you're going to have a guy that shows up to training camp, competes, is going a million miles an hour, bringing energy, communicating. I mean, it's going to bring juice for everybody. And that's what I think we'd get if we got a Curse. They're all incredible. They're all unbelievable athletes. To have that many professional lacrosse players in one family is absurd. It's something that literally you can't make up in a book, but yet it's real life. So I'd be super excited to have him if we go that route. But anywhere we go, we'll be all right. We'll take him in and hopefully we'll have the most success with him.
You mentioned, in the press conference and earlier today, you have a fiance and she's a nurse and everything. You guys working insane schedules in your own rights. What is that dynamic like for you as a professional athlete, her being a nurse, those crazy hours, you traveling? What is that dynamic, kind of that peek behind the curtain that people, like you mentioned a ton, don't really get to understand or really get that insight? What is that dynamic like for you as fiancés to kind of balance that work-life balance?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. You kind of almost forfeit your entire summer of outside of lacrosse and basically commit to just the grind. And I think she's done an unbelievable part of that as well. She started in the hospital last July. So this was her first summer where I was traveling and she was working full time. And, we kind of paired it up with, she started working weekend night shifts. So it's like, if I'm not going to be home and you're working, I'll work. And it's unbelievable work ethic on her part. It's honestly what makes me work harder, is being like, well, if you're going to do that, then I better go out there and show you something on the field as well. But yeah, it's something like Jake said as well. The guys that have kids, especially, it's insane that we do this sometimes. You think about it, but it shows you how much we actually care about the sport. You can say whatever you want about a guy's performance. You can say whatever you want. Oh, he didn't play well. He didn't do this. We want this guy. We want that guy. you can never question the passion that we have or the love for the sport that we have for the guys that show up every weekend and leave their families behind. And then the lucky weekends where you get to fly your family out and hang out with them after the game is also unbelievable. I had Alexis, my fiance, and her dad, my soon to be father-in-law out. We, grabbed shrimp tacos on the beach, had some Mexican food in San Diego. They got to come to the game, Pacific Beach, the day after. It's unbelievable. And you get to experience all these new things that you would have never had without the sport. And it kind of totals in, and that's kind of where your family can buy in as well, is look what it's doing for all of us. We got to go on vacation. They got to go on vacation to San Diego and watch me play at the same time. I think that's where it does take a full buy-in from everybody that your life's a part of, because I haven't been home on a Thursday through Sunday since when we had a bye week, and it's tough sometimes. And with kids, it's got to be even harder. So shout out all the dads on our team. It's tough stuff. I mean, you look at guys like Kieran McCardle, you're getting beat up by a number one defenseman every week, slash, cross-checked, push from behind, you're scoring goals, you're doing this. And then on Sunday morning when you get home, here's a baby, go ahead. Mom, I'm taking off. I need my break. Like, Dad, you're in charge. And it's like
Getting slashed,
you're
cross-checked.
yeah.
Yes,
And
baby.
Again.
it's stuff that you just can't make. It's like, I'm lucky enough that I get to go home and sit on my couch on a Sunday. These guys go home and be full-blown dads. It's honestly, it just shows you how much they actually care. And that's what I was saying with Jake. It's like, how do you not play hard as a guy that gets it a little bit easier than the rest because I don't have kids? It's insane. And, shout out to all the families that are part of our team. I mean, no matter where the Waterdogs go, there's always relatives showing up. They're always there to support you, and they love all of us on the team. So it's truly special.
You guys are the Philadelphia Waterdogs. You win the championship in Philly in 2022. Take us through, as people who were watching the game in the press box and everything, and just the fans in the stands, take us through what that moment in time is as that clock clicks down from, 10 to 5 to 0, and you guys are champions.
Yeah, that was the first championship I ever won as an athlete in general, which, so for me it was everything. It's still imprinted in my head. I think it was funny. I think there was a video posted the other day of us running on the field, and CK Connor Kelly was just like, Matt, I think you ran the fastest onto the field. I was like, yeah, I was trying to be first. Like, if Ben Randall, Sabia, if they didn't get to Dylan Ward first, I was right behind him, and I was jumping on that pile. It was something that's finally just you can finally relax and take that deep breath of like, wow, we did it. Like, it's here, and we won that game. Like, it doesn't feel real for a while. Celebrating, even in the locker room, celebrating doesn't feel real. And then you wake up the next day, you're like, wow, that actually happened. And you're like, that went by like a blink of an eye. But like any other great athlete, great quarterback, whatever sport you want to say, it does hook you instantly to that feeling. I think like now the only goal really for lacrosse that I have is to win another championship. There's no individual accolades. There's nothing else I kind of really want but to win another one. I think like everybody else says, you live it, you love it, and you're appreciative that you experienced it, but it's always about that next one because you're chasing that feeling again of wow, we're on top, we did it. And I think that's something that's going to always keep me going and always keep our team going, is like, we got it once. Now how do we make it, a regularly scheduled program where we're getting back there almost every year.
And I know you're a New York guy, but winning a championship there, now playing for the Philadelphia Waterdogs, has that made Philadelphia like have kind of a soft spot in your heart now?
Oh, for sure. I was a bigger college football fan than I was NFL fan. So for me, it kind of fit in pretty easily. I kind of wear it. I like it now. I think going to school in Delaware, I was surrounded by Philly fans regardless. So I have a lot of friends that are Philadelphia fans, a lot of Delaware guys that love Philly. My brother's taking it to the chin a little bit, diehard Giants fan. He's pretty upset if I become an Eagles fan. I don't think I will just yet, but he's definitely battling the old household of New York Giants, everything, New York Rangers, everything, and then there's just a Philadelphia Waterdogs flag right there next to it. Surprised he hasn't sharpied out the line and just said Waterdogs, but he's doing his part too, and he cares about it. So he's the Philadelphia is mixed in with the New York stuff just a little bit, not too much.
That's great. when it comes to, I feel like there's like two sides of the coin here for pro athletes, where like when their season comes to an end, there's one half that like don't want anything to do with watching their sport or like consuming it, and then the other half is like, I'm a fan regardless, I'm going to tune in. Where do you kind of fall on that? Do you plan on, watching the PLL playoffs and being invested in and watching what goes down, or are you kind of going to take a little bit of a breather from it, or kind of a hybrid of both?
So modern day terms, are you gonna go ride horses like Jokic, or are you gonna sit and tweet about lacrosse like LeBron?
I definitely lean more towards the side of generally just being a fan of the sport. I still watch college lacrosse on Saturdays. I mean, that first Saturday in February, I'm just as excited as everybody else. I'm watching, Delaware play NJIT. I'm watching, a Syracuse go play a Bucknell, or any of these early season. Definitely watching Duke go play Air Force, because you never know what you're going to get out of it. I'm watching those games, so I'm definitely leaning on the side. More of a fan. I don't get pretty active on social media. I like to keep my comments to myself for the most part. But yeah, I'm going to be watching the playoffs here unfold and see what happens. I'll be angry every step of the way. I'll be frustrated that we didn't do what we needed to do to get there. But yes, I will be on my couch watching those games and just saying to myself, why aren't we out there? What do we need to do to make sure we're out there next time? Because it sure is a lot better being out there than watching it on TV. And that's kind of the future we expect out of the Waterdogs, is to not be the guys on the TV watching these games.
Who's your favorite Waterdog teammate to watch in the NLL?
Ooh, first I'll give it to Wardo, just because, I mean, you watch the championship runs the Mammoth went on. I mean, just doing unthinkable things to beat that Bandits team, as stacked as they were, and to win that championship for Colorado. I mean, watched every step of the way. We get to training camp, we're watching them on the little dorm TVs on our phones. We're supporting them the whole way. Courier's another one. I mean, you watch him be a Swiss Army enough in the PLL, and then you go watch him play lockdown defense and transition in the NLL, and you're just like, this guy never runs out of gas. He could do it all. Let me see another. I did love watching Kieran. I thought Kieran brought a slickness to that lefty low spot in box, and man, he's a Long Island guy just like I am, and man, that comes out as soon as he starts competing. You see the fight in his eyes. You see how much he's trying to win that game, and watching him scrap it up was great. Burnsy, I mean, I'll give it to Wardo, but shout out, Jake Withers, also our old teammate, faceoff guy. I mean, what he's unstoppable in that league. Like it's you just wit like it's like we had that. We got lucky enough to have that, and then it's like you look at him go compete for Halifax, and you're like, he's legitimately unstoppable. So all those guys like that, you love supporting. I know Sabi is a diehard Wings fan. He's always going to watch Ben McIntosh. We had Benny Mac on our team for a year or two with the Waterdogs. He's still going to games. So it's this thing runs pretty deep. The roots are there, and we're all supporting each other. The guys that don't play in the NLL, I mean, I'm for sure watching their games, whether it be the Rochester Nighthawks and Ryland, or you're watching, the new San Diego Seals with Courier and Eli and those guys on it.
The fun question that I always love to pull, and DJ does too. What's a teammate on this Waterdogs team that brings something to the locker room that we wouldn't necessarily expect or see to the public eye, that just makes them perfect for the Waterdogs?
Oh, that is a good question. I'll start. You could say we'll start with Schloss. I think that man doesn't have a negative bone in his body. I've never really seen him get angry. Usually, 110% positive about anything. The worst situations he is positive about. But then you watch a guy like Eli Gobrick get cut from the world teams for the box, and he replies back to that with a tweet, or he'll sound off in the locker room a little bit about how he's like, there is some fire in that, where he'll let his opinion be spoken, and it's like something where it's just so perfect. It's such a genuinely kind human being, a great teammate, fits the culture perfectly. But then at the end of the day, like, don't get him wrong. When you go against his guys, that support will be there 10 times out of 10. I think it's unreal to see him tweet at people, tweet at USA Box Lacrosse, and just be like, how is this guy not on the field? that's kind of the teammate he is, and gives you a little bit of insight. I think some other things is just some of the banter that goes on. This year we dealt with mobile Catan, I think it's called, the game Catan. We had a lot of guys playing that on the phone, so there was some inner competitive battles of just like being in a hotel or a conference room with a meeting and just being like, these guys are yelling at each other, like, sell me wood so I could build a fence, and you're just like, what are you guys talking about? And they're just over there competing in Catan, and we're just like, oh, I guess this is what they're doing now.
That's incredible.
It's
It's
like
pretty
me.
funny, man.
That's like me jumping into my my kids. I coach high school here back at home. We're coming back from like an hour game, and they're on the back of the bus playing Among Us. And I just
Yeah,
like popped
it's
in, and they were like,
yeah.
"Who is this?" And I was from the front. I was like, "I'm playing."
That's
They just
fun.
were like,
Yeah.
"Coach is in," and it just burst out. Like, but that's like the
Uh,
best part about lacrosse is just that time you get to spend with other people.
oh yeah, I mean our entire training camp when we're not on the field, it's playing cards, playing board games, playing video games, hanging out, eating meals together. Something new happens every year. Catan was this year. We never had the mobile app for those guys to play, so that's definitely the new one. But I mean, it's something new every year, and it always makes you smile watching those guys go.
I have a fun ranking for you. Now, I don't know how up to date this is, but it is on your player profile on the PLL website.
Okay.
I want you to rank these three with how they kind of stack for you. Game of Thrones, Drive to Survive, Saving Private Ryan.
That's not up to date, but it is up to date because those are still my favorite. Game of Thrones is probably first just because the time needed to invest in it. I think when you look back at all the time you commit to watching that, you gotta love it the most. I mean, we used to do a Delaware thing on Sundays when Game of Thrones was premiering that last season. I think there was 8 or 9 of us that used to do a Game of Thrones dinner, and we used to all bring something to the table. And we weren't bringing normal hot dogs and hamburgers. We had a guy bring a full Christmas ham one time. It was just like Game of Thrones fitting. Let's throw in a ham in the oven. Sure. It's the middle of March and we're eating a Christmas ham. Shout out Chase Conkle for bringing the ham.
That's
Um,
great.
but yeah, it's just another thing that kind of builds that. So I'll definitely go Game of Thrones first. Drive to Survive. Um, what those guys do is outrageous. To drive those cars that fast, and I even got into the NASCAR one this summer. I was watching it on the road. I'm instantly hooked. It's gotta feel like what like Housewives and Love Island feels to the people that love that. Like that addiction to like being like I can sit down and watch this. They've done an incredible job, and it's honestly I catch myself watching F1 races still. It's still so interesting to me. And what was my last one?
Saving Private Ryan.
Oh yeah, that's just the that opening D-Day scene is just unbeaten. I
Money.
I will say I think All Quiet on the Western Front gives that a run for money for my favorite action military movie. That movie was incredible. But yeah, I think those are pretty accurate. It's funny. Me and Dylan, when we're sharing our hotel room, we're big hotel movie guys. So I think you're always just scrolling through the hotel channel, being like, "Are we going to get lucky with a John Wick
Right.
marathon, a Harry Potter marathon, or are we going to have to settle for something that we're catching the last 30 minutes of?" Um, so yeah, I think I'll unfortunately have to put Saving Private Ryan last, but man, what
It
a
is a little
heck
different. It
D-Days.
is a movie versus show. So
Exactly.
it's almost like its own category.
Oh yeah, I'll give you a third TV show. I'll put third as my favorite would be all of the Star Wars on Disney Plus, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, all of those.
We're gonna have to
Just
talk Star Wars now.
I mean I'm hooked on I love those. Once they started making those miniseries kind of things off the movies, I mean, it's the similar production of Game of Thrones. The quality of these things are
So
unbelievable.
good.
Yeah, so I throw that in as my third favorite TV show for sure.
Love that. Do you have a favorite F1 driver, F1 team?
My favorite driver, F1 team is Ferrari. I think it's Forza Azzurri. I played for Team Italy, so you can't go against them. I'd say favorite driver though is probably ooh, it's probably Leclerc, but I mean, being a new fan of the sport, you have to love the dominant like the dominant guys you just can't not respect. I don't like to be a bandwagoner, so like joining Red Bull and being like Max Verstappen's the best ever would be a little bit like joining Alabama and just starting to root for them. So I couldn't go that route, and so I went the Ferrari route, became a fan of them. But yeah, I mean, this guy just doesn't lose. It's unbelievable. You watch him and you're just like, is he that like? And for me, being a new fan of the sport is like, you really don't know if he's that good of a driver or that engineer or their engineers just that much more dominant where they're building him a car that's separating him from the rest by a landslide.
both.
And I think that's the awesome part of the sport is there's these genius scientists behind the scenes that can build this super fast car, and one little inch is different than every other car in the field, and bang, that buys him a second on the racetrack. And you're just like, how does that make sense? I think the curiosity of it is what gets me hooked. It's become a big fan of the Premier League and European football. It sounds a little stereotypical, sounds a little douchey, but when you start to understand the inner workings of these professional sports, it keeps you wanting to watch more. Once I learned about formations and you learn about the roles that these wingers play or these fullbacks, these center attacking mids play, and then you start to understand the shape. I think that was what was big for me with soccer, is understanding the shape, the formation, and what the goal is of the run that they're making. Once I get into the details like that, if of any sport, I'm hooked. I think I really do love the ins and out of every sport, football included, basketball, lacrosse, doesn't matter. I think once I start to learn and understand, like, oh, there's IQ behind this, there's philosophy. Let's buy in. Let's try to learn it. I can pretty much watch anything that's competitive.
I love that.
I
know Deej was hyped when he came into this interview. I just the Matt DeLuca stock is through the roof on this podcast.
I mean, it already was.
It already was.
It was already tapped out. But did you play any basketball coming up?
Yeah, I did. I didn't play in high school. My basketball was more of track practice. I played goalie for a reason. Absolutely hate to run. You will never see me running more than outrunning a ball behind the net. I played. I think it was made it the most basketball. The most fun for me is I always played it in a fun nature. I always played it pickup. Always played it 5-on-5 with my friends. Pool basketball, anything like that. Once I grew into my body, it actually wasn't that bad. I have a European, like a Kristaps Porzingis kind of game to me. A little bit lanky, got the European jumper, little bow-legged. But yeah, I could hoop. I like it a little bit. I got big on the NBA. Honestly, again, people can hate LeBron. You listen to the JJ Redick LeBron podcast, you find out the inner workings of how basketball actually works. You put your TV on and watch an NBA game and you're like, oh my God, the amount of detail that goes into this game is unbelievable. And it's something that really people don't understand. And you're just like, oh, it's the NBA, nobody plays defense. It's like, no, that's not like, and for a while, I was one of those. I was like, I don't really understand it. And then when you get exposure to the inner workings, like I said, and you learn, you're like, oh, there's all of this that goes into it. It makes it so much more fun to watch. Now I'm looking for screens on the elbow, flybys, different picks. And again, like that, I think addicted to is like once you learn that and you watch it and you watch they either run it correctly or run it unsuccessfully, it's like you're kind of watching for that. And that's, a soccer game could be 0-0, but you're hooked on the intensity and the opportunities and the chances. So yeah, unfortunately didn't play basketball. Can dunk a basketball though, fun fact. I had to throw it in there, humble brag. But yeah, no, I think lacrosse has always been a passion for me. Played that, volleyball, love Olympic volleyball is still one of my favorite to watch. Volleyball, lacrosse, basketball for fun, football until 8th grade because of concussions, and that kind of wraps up my athletic career. I made the right choice. I don't think I would have been very good at anything else.
Yeah, I was the other way around. I started basketball, played basketball for 15 years, and then got in lacrosse my junior year of high school, and the transition was almost seamless.
Mhm.
And I think that like if more lacrosse fans or basketball fans got into the other sport, it would naturally just create this bridge of people that enjoy each other because they're the same sport.
Yeah.
Everything I know about lacrosse is because I played basketball. And it's like everything I've learned new about basketball is because of lacrosse. Like it's pick and rolls. It's a full court press is just a 10-man ride. Like a 3-man weave is just like working, the ball up the field after you pick up a ground ball off the face off. Like there is no real difference in the two games. And I think that is like something we should be attacking a little more often.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's basketball is one of the sports for reference I probably use the most when I'm coaching. Even goalies. You're coaching defense, you get a kid who's brand new to the sport, never played before, got a stick in his hand, and you're trying to teach him how to approach or how to play defense. You ever play basketball before? You know how to sidestep, you know how to shuffle, you know how to turn your hips and run. And a lot of kids do. You grow up playing basketball in a little rec league on a little tiny hoop, and it's a good thing for reference. But even for goalies, when I'm teaching the sport, it's now with goalies, it's a lot about moving laterally and not stepping to the ball and attacking it, because we're losing so much time with how quick the releases are, how fast the ball is moving. So teaching lateral movement, I really teach a lot of basketball, shuffle defenses where you're not stepping to the ball, you're driving off your back leg, you're loading your quad, loading your calf, and we're exploding laterally versus attacking the ball forward. And basketball is a huge reference for that, for me at least, to relate to some of these kids that are new to the sport. So like you said, I mean, there's endless similarities between the two, and ultimately when you understand one and you understand the other, they're both so much more fun to watch.
This has been more than we could have ever expected. We will definitely have to do this again, and we'll definitely have to do it in person at some point next season for sure. Matt, you are genuinely DJ's white whale for this show. And like you said, his reaction was perfect. You're the best. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the work that you put in, and just being the ultimate fixture of what a professional athlete should be for a team, and being the ultimate teammate. And we know that the Waterdogs are going to bounce back next year bigger and better than ever. And anything that we can do to help support you, you've got us in your corner, and we will definitely have to do this again.
For sure. I appreciate you guys having me. I think, like I was DMing you back and forth, I appreciate all you guys do. And this sport only grows with guys like yourself dedicating time and your free time to record podcasts, cover the sport. So appreciate everything you guys do. And yeah, it was fun, man. I think to be considered a white whale is crazy. I don't think I ever would have considered myself that. I just kind of go about playing lacrosse for the fun of the game. So to hear my name as a white whale is pretty funny to me. But I appreciate everything. I join you guys. I mean, we don't even have to talk lacrosse. I'll talk whatever you guys want.
Yeah, we'll have to get you on we have an F1 show on our network. Our one co-host is a Ferrari fan, so we'll have
is a Charles Leclerc fan.
Yeah, we'll have to link you guys up. We have whenever a new Star Wars show comes out, we will invite you on our TV movie podcast, like 110%.
We'll be chatting.
Absolutely. You're the best,
Right.
man. We appreciate
of course.
you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I loved it.
Deej, we got him. What a time it was with Matt DeLuca.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. He gave us a great amount of his time. It was awesome. Answered, everything with, thorough answers, and had amazing energy. I mean, and chop it up with him and really talk and get to know him as a guy. Like, he would be a homie outside of the game. Like, even
I think he already is.
Yeah, had I not met him through lacrosse, he would still be a homie.
Yeah, like genuinely just down to earth. Like, the three of us have collective similar interests. Like, it was such a fun time, and like it genuinely didn't even feel like we were doing an interview. Like, it was just like the boys kicking it, enjoying just conversation. And it will certainly not be the last time Matt DeLuca is on this podcast network. We have plans to have him on multiple shows moving forward, which will be a lot of fun. So big shout out to Matt DeLuca. Shout out to the Waterdogs for promoting that he was coming on the show as well. And we got some more guests in the pipeline that we're working on. And one of them that was unbelievable. Before we get into our end of year award nominees, I never in a million years would have thought Sammy Adams, the one and only, would have any interest on coming on this podcast, but Sammy Adams is allegedly going to be coming on this show in the near future, Deej. And I got to tell you, high school me was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm DMing with Sammy Adams at 11:30 at night just the other day, but Sammy Adams is also performing at the PLL semifinals, the PLL Semi-Summerfest on Long Island at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Performance by Sammy Adams right after the Battle of the Badges, right before the winner of Whipsnake's Outlaws take on the New York Atlas. And Sammy Adams is coming on the pod.
Wait, I thought Whipsnake's Atlas was playing Archers.
They do have it mixed up on one of the ways on the promotional poster I'm
so
at right
confused now.
So here we go, right? On the promo poster they put out with Sammy Adams performing, they have it as Atlas versus Denver / Whipsnakes. On the website for the bracket, they have it the other way.
Confused. Confusion.
No lo sé. What I do know is that Sammy Adams has agreed to come on the podcast, and he is extremely stoked to come on the pod with us, which is never in a million years would I have expected the one and only Sammy Adams to be a future guest of this podcast.
We on the up and up, bro. We on the up and up.
Today's price is not yesterday's price.
What Moneybag Yo say?
Just give me my money.
Yeah.
Hey!
This is gonna be so sick, though. I'm
Unreal.
so hyped, man.
Like high school me, like 9th grade, 10th grade me is like, holy shit. Like that's when I Hate College dropped. And that was like the shit on like the bootleg Guitar Hero game on your iPod Touch.
Not the iPod Touch. That's hilarious.
Sammy Adams is the GOAT, man. He is one of the coolest dudes, like just across the board. And like the fact that he's a PLL fan, he's apparently a Connor Fields fan too, which is pretty sick. And he wants to come on the pod and chop it up with us. And I was texting everyone I know that had any remote idea of who Sammy Adams was. And thank Christ you know who Sammy Adams is, because I texted some people that are in your age range and they were like, who? And I was like, bro, you don't know the GOAT?
I would laugh, but there's been plenty of times you have offered someone
for
to
sure.
me, and I'm just like,
but you know who Sammy Adams is. Sammy Adams is like peak college frat house basement party. He's on that playlist.
I do know Sammy Adams.
He's got new music out too.
Not to be confused with Hard Lager Samuel Adams.
Or not to be confused with, which I feel like, and I can't wait to ask him this, how many times he has been confused with Asher Roth.
Oh, yeah. I could see that.
Because Asher Roth obviously had I Love College, and then Sammy remixed it to I Hate College.
Yeah.
I wonder how many times he's been confused with Asher Roth. Super stoked that this is going to happen. And if you are going to be at PLL semifinals, go kick it at the PLL Semi-Summerfest with Sammy Adams. All the information is on the PLL social, so definitely check that out. But Deej, the end of year award nominees, we will run through them briskly. Obviously for multiple reasons, but we will run through the nominees and just any surprises of snubs or anything like that, and surprises of actual nominees. It is brought to you by our pals over at Duracell. Yes, Duracell Portable Power Stations are bringing you this segment. They are one of our newer partners, and we are thankful to have them on board because all of our live events will soon be powered by Duracell. And that's a crazy thing to say because Duracell is the #1 battery brand in the business, helping keep your things charged. And Duracell portable power stations and charging hubs allow you to power your laptops, mobile devices, lights, speakers, and any small electronics that make your life easier during a power outage or while you're away from a wall outlet. Like I mentioned, we're going to have the power stations for any live events moving forward. We're going to have one at our F1 live event that's going down on Sunday as they do their first live podcast, join the live podcast crew like we have and like Underground Sports Philadelphia has. They are truly the best. And why would you not want your devices being powered by the #1 trusted battery brand in the business? Duracell is that brand. I've used Duracell since I was a kid to power up remotes for the TV. Back in the day when you had a house phone, Duracell was going in those house phones to keep them charged up, so the telemarketers call you and you get crazy and angry, and then you take the Duracell batteries out and put them in something that truly needed to be charged. You had them in all your gaming controllers. Duracell has been in our lives for decades, and now they are part of our podcasting lives. So click the link in the description. Check out the Duracell Portable Power Stations, including their 2024 Red Dot award-winning M150 and M250 models, and untether your device charging from the wall and power the possibilities with Duracell Portable Power Stations. Like I said, click that link in the description and check out all the charging hubs and power stations that Duracell has to offer. And thank you to Duracell for charging up this episode of the Outside the Box podcast. Deej, the end of year award nominees have been announced. Let's sift through them quickly for the people. Starting with the Attackman of the Year nominees being Jeff Teat, Zed Williams, Michael Sowers, Marcus Holman, and Asher Nolting. Notable mention here, this is Michael Sowers' first nomination for Attackman of the Year, which is kind of crazy to think about. But those are your Attackman of the Year nominees. Your Midfielder of the Year nominees, Dox Aitken, Matt Campbell, Grant Ament, Tom Schreiber, Zach Currier. Your Defensive Player of the Year nominees, JT Giles Harris, Matt Dunn, Gavin Adler, and Garrett Epple. Your Leadership Award nominees, Matt Dunn, Marcus Holman, Tom Schreiber. And your Teammate of the Year award finalists, Cole Kirst, Ryan Ambler, Austin Kaut. Your Goalie of the Year nominees, Colin Kirst, Blaze Reardon, Brett Dobson, and Liam Entenman. Your Face-Off Player of the Year, Joe Nardella, Trevor Baptiste, TD Ireland. Your Hard Hat Award for the Short Stick D Midi of the Year, Zach Geddes, Ryan Terefenko, Danny Logan. Your LSM of the Year for the first time, Michael Earhart, not in the finalist. It is Jared Connors, Tyler Carpenter, Ethan Rawl. Your Humanitarian Award winner nominees, Brett Makar, Romar Dennis, Mike Sisselberger, and Nakai Montgomery. And your Sportsmanship Award nominees, Piper Bond, JT Giles Harris, Miles Jones, and this week's guest, Matt DeLuca. Your Coach of the Year nominees, Mike Pressler, Jim Stagnita, Tim Sudan. Your Rookie of the Year nominees, TJ Malone, Brennan O'Neill, and the entire Atlas rookie class of Connor Schellenberger, Liam Entenman, Tyler Carpenter. And your MVP finalists, Blaze Reardon, Jeff Teat, Asher Nolting, and Tom Schreiber. Deej, your takeaways from our finalists for the end of year award nominees.
This list is pretty much how I thought it would look. Honestly, in my opinion, most of the finalists for their awards are pretty cut and dry. I think a lot of these awards are cut and dry just based on, the way the season went and how things unfolded for multiple teams across the league. The one thing I would say is I would drop Liam Entenman most likely from Rookie of the Year and swap
Agreed.
him with Bo Pettersson probably. Who else are you going to put there?
I was going to say Grant Bundy Jr.
But I don't even think he did enough. Like my thing with Bo was he played all year and played well all year. Didn't get scored on often. For most of the year was in the top 5% as far as shooting percentage as the nearest defender, especially out of short sticks. He was playing baller. And, for me, the thing with Liam is, he just didn't quite start the year and that whole thing there. But yeah, I'm not opposed to Liam being there. Not opposed to Graham being there. I also already have my opinions on who should win that award anyway. Yeah, I just think there should be a little more love to the defensive side of the ball for, situations like that, especially Rookie of the Year. there's some good rookie defensemen in the last couple of years that just haven't even gotten looks because it's such an offensive award.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in full perspective, like Graham played all 10 games, 23 points, 9 1-pointers, 6 2-pointers, set the rookie record for 2-pointers in the season, had 2 assists, 5 ground balls, 11 turnovers, 3 power play goals, no penalties, clean player. Shots on goal percentage was just under 50% at 48%. He was like the one that I was surprised didn't get nominated. But like you said, most of the nominees were pretty, for lack of a better term, chalk, or didn't come as a surprise. But yeah, I mean, congrats to all the finalists. We won't say too much more. We will keep it pushing though, but let us know your lists for who you have winning each award in the YouTube comment section. Tweet it at us. Because we're interested to see how your guys' brains operate on these things and seeing how things play out. I think there's like 3 awards, and it's almost every year that it's this way, that it's just always interesting to see how it shakes out. To me, it's Coach of the Year for the most part, just seeing where people's brains lie and how they think a coach, performed. I always think Defensive Player of the Year is always fascinating to watch. And then the typically Rookie of the Year, and we'll see how it shakes out this year. You and I are pretty aligned on who's going to walk away with that, or who we think should walk away with it. And then the Face-Off Player of the Year this year is going to be very, very interesting because I think all 3 guys are deserving.
I think it's a little more of a 2-man race for me.
Agreed. But it's
but-
like 2 guys here, and then like third guy's like right here.
I'd probably put him just a little bit lower than that, personally. But yeah, those are probably the 3 awards that actually have some true conversation to them.
Let me see what his stats were. We're talking about TD Ierlan here.
But see,
what
I think
his numbers were last year, just for comparison in my brain. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a drop off from last year. Last year he was insane in a lot of categories, but like still his, I mean, you could argue second best season of his career.
yeah, but I think it's more about what you provide to your team.
He was a bright spot. He provided that.
In terms of like this award, like, and what sucks is I don't think he deserves the award based upon the success of his team. With the opportunities he granted them. Not necessarily his success as a whole, but just, okay, TD went out and did his job and won faceoffs, but what did you do after that? Nobody moved around to like give him space to come down the middle and shoot often, but they also weren't scoring off his passes. Like Trevor.
I'll say for TD, though, just in terms of his stats and career high in goals.
Yeah. I mean, like, there
were
bright
career,
spots there.
That's an improvement for him just with the 32-second and being able to go down. Because before, early in his career, it was like, can TD even shoot?
I mean, yeah, he could shoot. They just got saved.
They weren't accurate.
Well, no, I think a lot of them got saved because he was basically all he shot was 5-hole. Once he started to mix that up a little bit and like truly take some shots, it was there. I just think the bigger point is,
yeah, he doubled his career point total.
Yeah, I just think the other 2 really provided extra spark in certain situations.
And a way better shooting percentage, too. Last year, he had 2 points, 1 goal, 1 assist. He shot 11%. This year, 4 goals, shot 31%. Best shooting percentage of his career. Just overall trajectory of TD's career, that's a great improvement for him. So shout out to TD. But yeah, let us know in the YouTube comment section your thoughts on the end of year award nominees. The unfortunate news that we do have to touch on, and I hate when we have to touch on shit like this because it fucking sucks. I do want to pull up everything so I get it accurate. Is this Austin Staats situation. Like, I don't get it, and I will kick things off, number one, with I hope people in Austin Staats's life and circle and the people closest to him are guiding him and helping him to get the evident help that he needs. Whatever it may be, first and foremost, just Austin Staats, the person. I hope he gets the evident help that he certainly needs. Because these allegations are far from great. And it's not the first time that anything like this has happened, but it is the first time that it has been a plethora of alleged allegations. I don't think charges have happened yet, if I'm remembering correctly. It's just sad. Like, it's just a sad state of affairs that this has occurred. Turtle Island News put the article out on Wednesday that Austin Staats is facing assault charges. He was arrested on August 11th by the Brantford police, charging him with 3 counts of assault, 3 counts of assault with choking, 2 counts of threatening death or bodily harm, forcible confinement, mischief, and failure to comply with a release order. That's more charges than you can count on one hand in a single incident.
Well, what I'll say is they do get a little charge happy. Like they'll take an incident and tack on like 5 charges, and then they'll end up digressing and bringing it down to like 2. But like, it's a lot, yes. And this will be a hefty case, but I don't think it will end with the like 12 charges or
And
whatever
I'll
that it is
say
now.
the only like flip side double, and I agree, like people will get charge heavy in certain situations. The only thing that I will say is like I can't discount any of these alleged charges because it's not a first time thing. We've seen stuff from Austin before that has been on, like he was charged with aggravated assault in October of 2023, less than a year ago. The Matt Gaudette situation happened in 2021. We've seen things on the floor that this past postseason happened that forced the NLL's hand to suspend him to start the year.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting. More
No,
so,
I know. I'm just saying, like, you can't count out that all
like
of it allegedly
just more
happened.
so like they'll show up, see him punch 3 times, like, oh, that's 3 different assault charges. No, it's not. That's 1 assault charge, like that kind of thing. But I do not doubt for a second that something occurred.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's probably something pretty bad because just knowing the history of what we have seen from Austin Staats in the headlines, the bad has far outweighed the good in a lot of instances, which is unfortunate for somebody who, in a lot of ways, throughout his just come up and to get to where he is in his career, has had every opportunity to just take it and run with it and be one of the best lacrosse players on the planet. And this is all just like from the outside looking in, and I feel like you'll agree with me. It certainly feels like Austin Staats has like anger issues. To
There's
what
some
to
yeah,
what
so
degree? Who knows?
there's something there. I don't know if it's, like a trauma issue from younger with triggers, anger with
Some
triggers, like
sort of anger.
there's something there that causes him to lash.
Yeah. And we've seen it. multiple times. This is the third known instance off the field, off the floor that has occurred. And, Graham Parrow wrote an article for NLL Chatter, and it's like the PLL put him through some sort of course, obviously, in 2021 to where they felt he did enough to reinstate him. Only played in 2 games after that reinstatement, hasn't played in the PLL since, but it's clear that didn't really do much. Because since then, that's, what, a year, 2 years ago now? So that was 2022 when he got reinstated. It's now 2 instances of being charged with aggravated assault, and now, there's a plethora of other things on this current issue that happened as of this recording 11 days ago. It just sucks to see somebody who has so much, talent and can be a positive force in a lot of ways, and just has moments that make him snap. And you have the NLL, the Seals, MSL, and I don't know if anybody else put out statements, but I know those 3 in particular put out statements about it, saying they're aware of the situation. They're allowing the legal process to, shake out and do what they have to do to, come to a conclusion on everything. They don't have any future statements at the current time, which is obviously a typical thing that happens whenever an athlete gets arrested for anything. At the end of the day, I don't know, man. Like, I'm going to put you in Patrick Merrill and Steve Govett's shoes for this exercise, because those are obviously the big dogs running our friends over at the San Diego Seals. Patrick Merrill, the GM, Steve Govett, front office big dog. And even at this point too, like Joe Tsai, like, what do you do in this instance where it's something of this caliber? It's not a first time thing where there is a track record, obviously, with this player. And you've seen it this past postseason kind of rear its head a little bit on the floor to where it has resulted in a league suspension for your player. What do you do?
First, I want to say I'm not a big fan of judging people harshly in their worst moments,
For sure.
because we don't judge them overjoyously or overzealously in their very good moments either. You have to take the good with the bad. You have to take everything with a grain of salt and look truly at the person for who they are. With that being said, I would put him on indefinite suspension until he has truly done the work. The thing is, if you make somebody complete a course, they're going to do it because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get this thing, you need to do this. So they're going to do it because that's what they're told they have to do to obtain this certain thing. But when you tell someone, hey, you're not doing this until I truly feel like you've made improvements, they'll either A, realize they have a problem and decide to truly make those improvements. Because you can have somebody go to therapy and like all these things, but if they don't want to do the work and make the changes, it won't matter. So it gives them time to truly decide if that's what they want to do and make those decisions and put in the work. That's my opinion on it. I think both the Seals and the NLL and any other league should look at it that way. There are a ton of amazing things that have come from Austin Staats, both on and off the field. But there are a ton of really bad things that have come from Austin Staats, both on and off the field. I'm not saying you scrub those things entirely, but you don't use those things as the base framework. You say, hey, we need you to be a better person, both on and off the field. We sympathize with you as a human because of X, Y, and Z that may be influencing this. Austin Staats is the only person to ever have an anger issue. He isn't the only person to possibly go through trauma or, deal with X, Y, and Z. And they understand that as humans. This is a great opportunity to be humane and have that empathy and sympathy for someone and give them a true opportunity to not only work on themselves and become a better person, but to truly realize how good of a person they are themselves for themselves. And that's the kind of love and grace you have to extend to certain people. But at the end of the day, I could see them just completely severing ties at the same time.
And as a team where, like we mentioned time and time, this is not a first offense. This is not a first instance. Like, when do you have to kind of like look at yourself and say, when is enough enough? And we'll link the article in the description that Grampero wrote. And it didn't even cross my mind in this sense, but it is interesting to kind of have the devil's advocate and the opposite side of the coin approach to it. Where Graham wrote, you know, um, I said we should start thinking about whether the pluses of having him on your roster outweigh the minuses, and that the answer at the time was probably yes. And this was when um, the incident happened during the playoffs and he blindsided Jokes. Now he's been suspended 7 games from that incident, so he'll miss almost half of next season. And given the arrest, he may not be able to make the rest of the games either. So he says, I think the time has come for the NLL to cut ties entirely. The Seal should release Stotts, and the NLL needs to ban him from the league. This is not as a punishment for being arrested. It's about player safety, which I think is an interesting approach here from Graham, to where he says he's already been suspended multiple times from multiple lacrosse leagues and arrested at least twice for violent crimes. If you saw the cross check to the head of Anthony Jochum, who was not involved in the play at all until Stotts hit him, it was obvious that Stotts had simply lost control. Yes, I realize that this is unfair to the Seals. It would suck huge for Seals fans, but also for NLL fans in general. There's no question that Stotts is an incredibly talented player, and when he's on his game, uh, there may be nobody in the league more fun to watch, but we've also seen it anytime he could snap and cross-check someone in the head for no reason other than he's pissed about something. There's also the issue of what kind of image the league wants to project in having Stotts in the league, is having Stotts in the league important enough that they are willing to be seen as saying, yeah, but he's a big star, so we'll look the other way? Or do they want to send a message that no matter how big a star you are, this behavior is unacceptable? Is it possible I'm overreacting? Sure. Maybe a lifetime ban is too harsh. Perhaps he needs to be out of the league for, say, 2 seasons, and then he can apply for reinstatement. If he's arrested again in that time, game over. If he's reinstated and gets suspended again, game over. Maybe he needs to be forced away from the game he so clearly loves, so that he will take his anger management issue seriously. But as I said, this is not his first, second, or even third offense. Austin is a passionate player, but that passion combined with anger issues makes him a powder keg that could go off at any time. Thankfully, Joachim wasn't seriously hurt, but the next guy may not be so lucky. I don't know if the league or the NLLPA has some kind of program where they will pay for counseling or therapy or something similar that will help Austin. I really hope he is able to get the help he needs. It's an interesting aspect.
I'm not a fan of that outlook. More on the fact that as a coach and a guy who grew up in a public school system, there are certain players and people that you have to save from themselves. For example, like having a quote unquote trouble kid with a 2 to 3 point, somewhere between 2 and 3 GPA. So he struggles in the classroom as well, but he doesn't have a great home life. You put that kid on your team because you're saving him from himself and his conditions to try and encourage him and lead him a certain way. Obviously, you can't force them to go down a certain path, but you definitely can encourage it. We have seen time and time again, new coaches come in and change the way that things are done at those schools, and then those kids end up in certain situations. Not saying it's that coach's fault, but knowing what type of situation you're in and what kind of kids you're dealing with keeps certain kids safe or going down a certain path because of the options you give them. I think this might be a very similar situation. I would have to do a little more research to truly back this up, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these incidents happen after Lacrosse has been taken away from him. Like, weirdly, he just had an outburst after he just got suspended for 7 games. Not, and I don't know how often that has happened in his term of, situations, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a direct correlation between Lacrosse or something he loves being taken or changed or whatever.
To be fair, he has been playing MSL.
Fair, but at the end of
I'm
the
just saying,
day,
like, in that aspect, like, he has still been able to play.
yeah, but I'm just thinking, like, trigger wise. I just got 7 games taken away from me. He gets into a fight later with his girlfriend about money or whatever. Boom, it spirals because she's like, "Oh, how are we going to figure this out when we're already, dealing with this, this, and that, and now you're suspended for 7 games?" Like, things snowball, and a lot of that could do with how Lacrosse is influence. Like, Lacrosse can influence that a lot. Is basically what I'm saying.
Also,
And
to be
having
fair to
Lacrosse,
everybody, listen, we don't know if it was his girlfriend or whoever it was.
yeah,
It's not
like,
mentioned.
these are just scenarios being thrown out to kind of just back up what I'm saying here, and that Lacrosse can influence his mood a lot. And
I
being
also can't read the whole article because Turtle Island News has
paywall.
a paywall.
So it's more just one of those situations where it's like sometimes having the sport is better for the person than not, or having something is better for them than not. I do think there are a lot of ways to go about getting him back into playing shape and being acceptable to play, but completely scrubbing the game, because you got to think about it too. If one league scrubs him, most of the other leagues are going to scrub him too. Because like the PLL did it, and then there was a huge conversation about whether the NLL was going to kick him out too, just because the PLL did it. Granted, he's kind of like doxed from the PLL in separate situations just because of how coaches feel on him at this point. But if the NLL box him, is the MSL going to allow him in? We don't know. So now if one league takes it away and both take it away, we could see a true spiral, which is what I'm concerned of.
Which is why I think, like, I agree with some of the stuff Graham said, where, like, I hope the NLL, the NLPA, whatever it is, and we mentioned it too, like, he gets the help he needs. And, like, is it, something that you take it away from him indefinitely? Yes, maybe. Maybe that is the case where he has to go through an entire season. Like, you're going to these league mandated, uh, therapy sessions, whatever it may be, classes, courses, however it is. I do think with a season where he is suspended for half of it pretty much already, it's a prime opportunity for the league to step in and say, hey, you're going to spend this entire season like figuring out what's going on for you personally, how we can help you figure that out and get you back on track to where you need to be. Because again, goes without saying, we've said it a number of times already, it's not like this is the first time. This has happened year over year almost, with 2022 being the only year that really hasn't had a blip on the radar. And quite frankly, at this point, that is the blip on the radar, unfortunately. So hopefully Austin gets the help he needs, because there's clearly something there, whatever it may be. And you never want to see anybody, down on their laurels and going through things like this to where it leads to, I mean, to be fair, like, these are some pretty serious charges in a lot of senses. To have a death, 2 counts of threatening death or bodily harm in that mix is not something you want to see from anybody. You don't want to see forcible confinement. You don't want to see, 3 counts of assault and 3 counts of assault with choking. You don't want to see any of that shit. And then also the failure to comply with a release order, that just shows like things bubbled over and who knows what the situation was like. But again, we'll link the Turtle Island News article in the description. Hoping Austin gets the help he needs. It's not a great situation. Any way you chop it up. So hopefully the victim 100% is okay and gets the help they need if need be. But man, not the news I expected to see on a Wednesday afternoon.
Facts. That was a shocker.
That's all we got for you guys on this one. Nice little bye week going into the PLL postseason. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB Lax Pod across the board. Join our, what is it called, Deej? The new fantasy game. The fantasy group shootout. Join our group if you're not in it already. We have a group available. You have a chance to win a PLL mystery box, which is pretty sweet. And download the PLL app in the App Store, Google Play Store, and go to the redeem code section as well and use code OTBPOD for 500 XP on your account. And then join the OTB fantasy group shootout where you can win a PLL mystery box and a whole bunch of other stuff involved as well. Group wins the grand prize, $200 PLL shop gift card. Each member selects 2 tickets to any 2024. I'm assuming this is supposed to be 2025 PLL game day. And each member selects any PLL jersey and hat. That's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. And any group that enters before September 3rd could win a PLL mystery box containing trading cards, PLL jerseys, helmets, and a 1-of-1 league exclusive. Can't tell you what the possibilities for that could be. So download the PLL app, use code OTBPOD for 500 XP, and join our fantasy group shootout. And follow us on the socials at OTB LaxPod. Subscribe to the pod. Leave the 5-star ratings, please. Please, 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 as Sabrina Carpenter once said. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia and Outside the Box Podcast YouTube channel. Smash the like button, ring the bell icon, leave a comment down below. Big thank you to Matt DeLuca for hopping on this episode of the pod and giving us an hour of his time. Like we said, won't be the last time he's on this show or a bunch of our shows on the network. I texted Casey that he was a Ferrari and Charles Leclerc fan, and she was like, he's already my favorite. So definitely stay tuned for Matt DeLuca content across the network. Stay tuned for Sammy Adams at some point. And next week, we'll be gearing up for the quarterfinals. We should have another guest next week to be determined. But until then, this has been episode 337 of the award-nominated, honorably mentioned, number 9 NCAA ranked, presented by Shootout For Soldiers, and of course, viewable on YouTube, Outside the Box Podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. For Deej, I'm KB. We'll see y'all next week. Enjoy a bye week to get geared up for the playoffs. We sleep in October, baby. But until then, we're getting the heck up out of here. Peace.
Peace.